In the Star Era, year 3052, at Hellstar, a planet on the border of the Imperial Federation, home to the most advanced warships and satellites. The system's announcement echoed, "You have entered the Imperial Federation, the Hellstar region, approaching the command center. Special Assistant Gu, you are 0.023 seconds late today. Please be mindful next time." Special Assistant Gu dared not object and immediately affirmed. The Supreme Commander of the Imperial Federation, Ing Wu, continued to ask, "What is today's schedule?" Gu Weilon, the special assistant and military doctor to the commander, replied, "At 9:30 this morning, you have a strategy meeting at the command center. At 2 in the afternoon, you must return to the Federation headquarters at Luo Palace to meet the Federation president. At 7 in the evening, you must attend a cocktail party with the president." Ing Wu turned back curiously. "A cocktail party?" Gu Weilon opened a display panel for Ing Wu to see. "Yes, the attire for the party has already been selected for you." After letting Ing Wu observe, she pressed her wristwatch, which contained the control panel, to turn it off. Then she gently reached up to adjust Ing Wu's collar and reminded him, "I have also set up an emergency message to be sent to the command center at 7:30 tonight to give you a reason to leave the party." Ing Wu, without a trace of emotion, coldly praised, "You did very well." It seemed Gu Weilon was used to his coldness, so she wasn't too disappointed. After adjusting Ing Wu's collar, she proceeded to pull out a chair for him. Then she pointed to the food on the table and announced the schedule. "It is now 9 in the morning. You have 15 minutes for your meal." Ing Wu had just sat down at the dining table for a few minutes. Just as he was about to lift a piece of steak to his mouth, he glanced and saw the maid placing a plate of tomatoes on the table. He immediately let out a cold snort, his eyes narrowing, angrily staring at the plate of plump red tomatoes. Ing Wu stared at the maid with a deathly gaze, causing her to panic, her heart in utter turmoil. "Oh my God, that look is so scary. What did I do wrong?" Gu Weilon quickly put an arm around the girl's shoulder and whispered, "During your job training, you weren't paying attention, were you? Remember this. The commander does not eat tomatoes. You may leave." Tears welled up in the girl's eyes. She looked at Gu Weilon as if she were a savior. "Yes." Waiting only for Gu Weilon's approval, she immediately scrambled away, chanting in her heart, "I'm scared to death, scared to death." Just as the maid left, the warning screen immediately filled with bright red, warning text. "Warning, warning, the Dark Star system is invading. Warning, warning, the Dark Star system is invading. Warning, warning, the Dark Star system is invading. Warning, warning, the Dark Star system is invading." Ing Wu grabbed his jacket, then hurriedly put it on. Before leaving, he adjusted the shoulder of his jacket and carefully instructed Gu Weilon, "Reschedule today's appointments for 2 hours later. Notify the warship to prepare. We deploy in 2 minutes." "Understood." As soon as Gu Weilon finished speaking, she opened the control panel. "Warship EC-0120 has confirmed it is ready." Waiting only for this sentence, Ing Wu departed immediately without any hesitation, and Gu Weilon quickly followed behind. The warship was ready for deployment in the air. At this moment, as Gu Weilon was focused on bandaging a soldier's wound, a man suddenly ran over in a hurry, shouting, "Dr. Gu, it's an emergency. Please follow me." The man's tone caught Gu Weilon's attention. She gently handed the gauze to the nurse beside her. "Help me for a moment. Thank you." It turned out the person who had just spoken was Adjutant Gao, a subordinate of Commander Ing Wu. Seeing his frantic state, she immediately removed her medical mask and inquired, "What happened? Is the battle going poorly?" Adjutant Gao replied, "No, the front line has won the battle, but in order to save me, the commander was injured. The commander is now in a coma, and you know, his condition is special. I don't dare let anyone else near him, so I secretly brought him to the treatment bay to find you." The two of them talked as they walked to the special treatment bay. At the door, Adjutant Gao said, "We're here. You go in. I'll go report the situation to the Federation headquarters." Gu Weilon pressed her hand on the fingerprint scanner, and the control panel immediately turned green. As she looked at him, she thought to herself, "No wonder Adjutant Gao is so worried. My superior's constitution is not like that of other ordinary people on this planet. Not only is he the strongest commander on the planet, but he is also a demon who differentiated into a human, nurtured by the Federation." At this moment, 2 red horns had sprouted from Ingwu's head. His handsome face was like a sculpture, still stained with unclean blood, his eyes tightly shut. Gu Weilon looked at him affectionately, continuing her own story in her mind. And the reason I could become Ingwu's sole military doctor and special assistant is largely because I was selected by the experimental base from a very young age. Before Ingwu entered the military, I was the one who grew up with him in the growth pod. But after that, as a demon who differentiated into a human, Ingwu stepped out of the growth chamber. The Federation president then ordered all of Ingwu's past memories to be formatted, and then he was sent to the military for training. I thought we would never meet again, but unexpectedly, 2 years ago, the Federation came to my door and made me his personal physician. She tested the needle while concurring. That's right, it's true that I understand him better than others. Gu Weilon had just inserted the needle into the back of his hand. In less than 10 seconds, her hand was gripped tightly by his other hand, and the syringe fell as a result. Gu Weilon's eyes widened in surprise. She was stunned and called his name, Commander Ing, but before she could finish, he twisted her arm and pulled her down onto the bed. She let out a startled and panicked scream. In an instant, her face and his were close together. One of his hands gripped her wrist, the other choked her neck. It was then that Gu Weilon clearly saw his glowing horns. She thought in a panic, the horns are glowing? This is a reaction that only occurs during the sensitivity period of a demon who has differentiated into a human. For those who don't know, the sensitivity period is a time when the demon becomes restless. If it's severe, they will lose their reason, need to be isolated, and develop a desperate desire for the person they've identified, hoping to receive comfort. Ingwu's eyes were bloodshot, and his mouth revealed 2 sharp fangs. His hands tightened their grip on her neck. No matter how much Gu Weilon struggled, she couldn't match his strength. She tried every way to calm him down. Fortunately, when she mentioned her name, Commander, let go, I am Gu Weilon. As soon as Gu Weilon finished speaking, Ingwu's body froze. Then his eyes gradually changed color, no longer bloodshot like before, and tears slowly started to fall. Then he looked at her with a deep, affectionate gaze, asking doubtfully, Weilon? Gu Weilon seized the opportunity to affirm, yes, I'm Gu Weilon. Her mind raced. I have to find a way to call for help. Suddenly, a heart-tipped tail grew from Ingwu's rear, wagging back and forth incessantly in time, with a sweet tone as he called Gu Weilon's name. Weilon, Weilon. Then it gradually wrapped around her legs. Weilon, Weilon. Ingwu kept humming her name, whispering softly, I miss you so much. I miss you very much. As he said this, tears welled up in the corners of Ingwu's eyes. The suggestive posture of the two of them at that moment was not very innocent. It made Gu Weilon's mind dazed, as if her head was in the clouds. What is this? This is something I never thought would happen. He grew up with me. They grew up together, the handsome youth of yesteryear, who once painstakingly picked a flower, cherishing it. He gently placed it in her hair and called her name, Wei Wei, and even praised her endlessly. It looked so beautiful like that. At this moment, her eyes widened in surprise. Her heart pounded, thumping continuously with shyness. But the call of Weilon brought her back to her senses. To think it would turn out like this. Returning to reality, Ingwu was now sobbing, tearfully reproaching her. Why aren't you looking at me? Gu Weilon blushed and pushed him away, saying, Commander, Ingwu, I know, let me go first. Unexpectedly, he was stubborn, using his tail to wrap around her hands, leaving her stunned. Ingwu looked at her intently and said decisively, I don't want to let go. He rubbed his face against her hand and said coaxingly, I want Weilon to be by my side forever. That pitiful expression and sincere voice made Gu Weilon's heart soften a little. She told herself, who wouldn't be captivated by this? She blushed shy, but still let him nibble on her. But her heart was in conflict. No, Gu Weilon, get a grip. She opened her mouth and said softly, Ingwu, be good. Just this one sentence was enough to make Ingwu stop what he was doing and listen to her attentively. Gu Weilon coaxed him gently. If you do this, I won't be able to treat your wound. Ingwu, sit up first, okay? Ingwu blushed and replied, but it's uncomfortable if I don't hug you. In less than a second, he leaned close to Gu Weilon's ear again and whispered, it's so uncomfortable. Can you kiss me? She moaned uncomfortably a few times, but still let him do as he pleased, because deep down she thought, some people look alive but are actually already dead. Although she didn't want to, she still tried to endure his boundary-crossing actions. In her heart, she cried out, "Someone come and save me." At that moment, Ingwu suddenly spoke up again, pleading, "Wei Wei, kiss me." This sentence startled her. Did I hear that right? Ingwu's memories were formatted by the Federation a long time ago. How could he call me by my nickname now? Ingwu unintentionally, he said a few more words to confirm that Gu Weilon hadn't misheard. "Wei Wei, why are you so distracted today? Is it because you—" At this point, Ingwu's tone changed, and tears of weakness began to well up in his sparkling eyes. "Is it because you don't like me anymore?" Gu Weilon quickly pulled him closer to explain, "No, it's not that." But before she could finish, Ingwu's crocodile tears started to flow rapidly, pouring down like rain. "Bull, sobi sobi." Gu Weilon didn't know what to do other than wipe his tears and say a few comforting words. "Be good, Ingwu, don't cry." As expected, he immediately pressed his advantage. "Wei Wei, I want a hug." Because she wanted to soothe him, she didn't intend to argue anymore, quickly patting his back and comforting him. I'll hug you, just don't cry anymore." Ingwu's tear-streaked face became a little stronger, and he promised her, "Okay, then I'll be good. I won't cry anymore." Then Ingwu, seizing the opportunity, leaned in and whispered to her, "Wei Wei, if you don't kiss me, then I'll kiss you." As soon as he said it, Ingwu didn't hesitate to give Gu Weilon a passionate kiss. She was so surprised and embarrassed that her eyes widened, not understanding what was happening. At first, she was a little awkward, then Gu Weilon gradually accepted it, slowly closing her eyes, calling his name Ingwu. The two shared a passionate, lingering kiss, with a few seductive moans occasionally echoing. Ingwu's tail also seized the opportunity to grope around, trying to get inside Gu Weilon's shirt. The two of them leaned close to each other, panting, huff. Of course, they both realized it, Gu Weilon, just this once. When Ingwu's voice rang out between interspersed gasps, "Wei Wei," it made her tell herself, just this once, let's be indulgent. Just as he uttered the single word Wei, she grabbed his collar and pulled him down hard. Their lips were stuck together again, like two peas in a pod. Ingwu began to caress Gu Weilon's neck, sweat pouring off both of them like rain, the sound of their suggestive moans never ceasing. Gu Weilon's hands were pulled up and held tightly above her head by him. Ingwu's tight embrace made Gu Weilon feel breathless, so heavy, so suffocating. She opened her eyes to see his handsome face right next to hers, his eyes silently closed. Gu Weilon tiredly sighed to herself. "He's holding me too tight. I can barely breathe." Ingwu wrapped his arm around her chest and then grabbed her right wrist, startling Gu Weilon. He gently pulled her hand up and placed a tender kiss on it. Gu Weilon blushed and smiled at him, never expecting that the symptoms of this oral fixation period would also appear in a normally very cautious commander. The oral fixation period would make the patient dependent on an object or a person, and if lost, they would become extremely anxious and insecure, using crying to express their feelings of grievance. She gently touched his soft lips with her hand, thinking to herself, under normal circumstances, Ingwu would probably sober up immediately. No matter what, I have to sit up first to avoid future awkwardness. With that thought, she immediately grabbed his arm to move it aside. Unexpectedly, before she could finish, he clung to her again, grabbing her hand and sucking on it insistently. Gu Weilon tried to sneakily pull her hand away without him noticing. Unexpectedly, as soon as she pulled it out a little, Ingwu started to whimper pitifully. Then he rolled over on the bed, whimpering with teary eyes, sob. This situation left Gu Weilon extremely flustered. What should I do? Is he going to start crying again? Cover his mouth first and figure it out later. In her panic, she had to resort to this crude method to stop the noise. After a few minutes of kissing, Ingwu finally calmed down a bit. He finally fell asleep, allowing Gu Weilon to breathe a sigh of relief. She gently withdrew the hand that was stroking his hair, then tiptoed to put her feet on the ground. As she stood up, she immediately staggered from the earlier exertion. Oh no. But she quickly regained her balance. Gu Weilon picked up her outer jacket. Then she comforted herself. "It's okay. It was just once. It's okay. It's okay," and quietly left the room. After leaving that room, she immediately went to the bathroom, pressing the flush button to wash up. Her neck was now covered with marks left over from the heated struggle earlier. Just a light touch made her wince in pain. Gu Weilon quickly fastened the last button of her shirt to prepare to leave. After getting everything in order, she calmly walked out. Unexpectedly, the person standing outside made her eyes widen in stunned surprise. Gu Weilon politely greeted Duke Ing. The person standing before her was Ing Wu's father, the leader of the highest noble family in the Imperial Federation, Duke Ing. He asked coldly, "How is Ing Wu?" Gu Weilon quickly replied, "I have finished treating Commander Ying's wound. For now, there is nothing to worry about." Also, she hesitated for a moment, then decided to tell the truth. Last night, because the wound got infected, Commander Ing developed a fever, and his sensitivity period was triggered for the first time. Duke Ing quickly grasped the main point. "You were with him all night?" Gu Weilon lowered her eyes, answering with some anxiety, "Yes." Hearing this, Duke Ing immediately narrowed his hawk-like eyes. Then he sternly reminded Gu Weilon, Special Assistant Gu, "I hope you can keep the matter of you helping him through his sensitivity period a secret." Gu Weilon said, "Duke Ing, Adjutant Gao, and the others know very well that I was the only one who entered Commander Ying's rest cabin last night. I'm afraid it's not possible for me to hide it alone." At this point, Gu Weilon hesitated. Duke Ing continued, "You can rest assured about that. I will have someone handle this matter properly. I just asked Professor Bailuo. After a demon who has differentiated into a human sobers up, they will forget what happened during their sensitivity period. Special Assistant Gu should understand this point, right? Of course, a good doctor like you couldn't possibly not know this. That's also why you dared to give yourself to him." Hearing Duke Ing say this, she sadly lowered her eyes and replied, "I understand." After the warning, he turned to leave. "Let's leave it at that. You may go back to your work." Gu Weilon thought to herself, "Just pretend nothing happened. That would be for the best for everyone." The next morning, Ing Wu sat up, one hand propped on the bed, the other massaging his aching head as he wondered, "Why don't I have any impression of what happened last night? If I'm not mistaken, judging by my body's reaction, my sensitivity period must have been triggered, and it seems I had intimate contact with someone. The important thing is, who was the person who helped me through my sensitivity period?" Ing Wu quickly connected with Adjutant Gao to inquire about the situation. "Hello, Adjutant Gao, who entered my rest cabin yesterday." Seeing Ing Wu's serious face, Adjutant Gao hurriedly waved his hands. "Huh, what person? I don't know either. I was dealing with the frontline matters all yesterday. You should try asking someone else." Adjutant Gao's answer angered Ing Wu for not getting an answer, and he immediately hung up. Ing Wu put his feet on the floor, preparing to get out of bed. He went out to the kitchen and took a water pitcher to pour. A full glass. The sound of the water trickling into the glass was pleasant. Then Ing Wu quickly drank all the water in the glass in one go. Suddenly, a pair of boots appeared at the door along with the sound of footsteps. The newcomer was Gu Weilon. In her hands, she held a change of clothes for Ing Wu. As soon as she saw him, her face immediately flushed with shyness. The drops of water that had spilled from the glass lingered on his chest, creating a very attractive and seductive scene. Gu Weilon tried to restrain herself and looked away, thinking to herself, "Don't think about what happened last night. Nothing happened last night." She walked over to him and gently asked, "Is the commander feeling better?" But he was the same as always. He emotionlessly took the clothes she brought and replied coldly, "Just a minor flesh wound." Gu Weilon skillfully helped Ing Wu get dressed. As she adjusted his collar, she reminded him, "You still need to change the dressing regularly. After you finish breakfast in a bit, I will change it again for the commander." Her hand, which was tying his tie, was suddenly grabbed by him. While Gu Weilon was stunned and didn't understand what was happening, Ing Wu continued, "Special Assistant Gu, find a woman who was with me last night for me." After he finished speaking, she was even more surprised, her heart in turmoil. "I have to find myself?" However, on the surface, she was frozen, not knowing how to respond. Seeing her silence, Ing Wu wondered, what? Special Assistant Gu doesn't agree. She deliberately avoided his gaze and replied respectfully, "I wouldn't dare." "Then go investigate." Then he ordered her to continue tying his tie. At this moment, Gu Weilon was racking her brain for a way to lie to Ing Wu. "If it's no one but me, how am I supposed to investigate? Also, does this brat think I'm an all-purpose assistant? Why does he give me everything to do?" Thinking of this, she was so angry that she imagined herself strangling him with the tie. But on the outside, she didn't dare to do it. She still had to tie the tie for that detestable man, even though she was cursing in her heart. It would be better if he just died. A few days later, later, outside Hellstar, Imperial Federation. At this moment, Gu Weilon was reporting to Ing Wu. Commander Ing, the data file for the meeting with the Federation President has been sent to your computer. Also, the spaceship is estimated to arrive at the intended location in 10 minutes. The control screen displayed a notification. The Foreign Minister of the Imperial Federation Council will meet with Foreign Minister Mata at Luo Palace on the 13th to hold talks. The international planetary war may be about to begin. Ing Wu just closed his eyes and indifferently hummed in acknowledgement. Less than a minute later, he unconsciously brought his hand to his mouth. Then he suddenly opened his eyes, which were filled with anger. Just a few seconds later, he crossed his arms in front of his chest, trying to endure. Gu Weilon saw his series of strange actions and became very worried. Why is this guy's mood suddenly so bad? It's better not to provoke him at this time. She had deliberately tried to ignore him, but Ing Wu's hand wouldn't stay still, fumbling around, searching for something. Then he frowned at her and asked, "You didn't prepare any candy today?" At this moment, Gu Weilon suddenly remembered. That's right, his habits really never change. He has loved eating this type of lozenge since he was a child, and it must be peach-flavored. But after last night, I might have discovered another meaning. Ing Wu likes to eat lozenges. Aside from the fact that he likes sweets, perhaps the main reason is that he suffers from the symptom of adolescent oral fixation period. That's why he needs lozenges to control himself when the symptom acts up. Gu Weilon smiled and replied, "I have some in my coat pocket, but I'm sorry it's not convenient for me to get it right now. Let me switch to autopilot mode." Gu Weilon's previous sentence was cut short because she was surprised when Ing Wu suddenly approached her. Gu Weilon blushed as she looked at him and thought to herself, why is he suddenly? Ing Wu's hand unhesitatingly reached into Gu Weilon's pocket. She closed her eyes tightly, her heart in turmoil. Although it's nothing, but we spent a night together last night, I really can't be as calm as before. At this moment, Ing Wu noticed her ears, which were bright red with shyness. She is. He leisurely took the candy out of her pocket and asked a question that ruined the ambiguous atmosphere. Special Assistant Gu, what are you nervous about? Gu Weilon nervously tightened her grip on the controls, lowered her head, and replied, "Nothing." Then she quickly and knowingly backed away. Ing Wu found it strange and kept staring at her. Of course, Gu Weilon could also feel his fiery gaze on her, so her cheeks turned as red as a ripe tomato. She deliberately waited for a moment, then dared to glance over and saw that he was still in the same position. In her heart, she wondered, why is he still staring? Ing Wu slowly unwrapped the candy he had taken from her. Then he slowly put the candy in his mouth. She looked at his detestable face while he was sound asleep and shook her head in exasperation. Gu Weilon, hurry up and forget about last night. After finishing her work for the day, Gu Weilon did some calculations, and it was finally her turn for a day off. Gu Weilon opened the control panel and wrote a leave request. She had already instructed Adjutant Gao on a few things to pay attention to in Commander Ying's daily work, ensuring that everything could run normally after she took her leave. After everything was prepared, she could confidently fly her personal aircraft back to Incite for her vacation. But Gu Weilon had forgotten one single thing, which was to say goodbye to Ing Wu personally. As soon as she arrived, Gu Weilon politely greeted, "Mom, Dad, I'm home." Mother Gu immediately helped her with her things, wrapped an arm around her daughter's arm, and said excitedly, "Weilon, I heard you were coming back, so I specially cleaned your room for you." Then Mother Gu led her into the room, proudly pointing to the place she had redecorated, and asked her daughter, "Take a look. Do you like it?" Gu Weilon smiled happily, her eyes crinkling. "I love it." At this moment, Father Gu peeked out from the kitchen and called to Gu Weilon, "Daughter, hurry and wash your hands, then come eat." This time, I didn't let the robots do it. I personally cooked all your favorite dishes. Seeing Father Gu like this, Grandfather Gu found it even more displeasing, lamenting that a man was always wasting time on unnecessary things. Utterly improper. He thought to himself, but didn't say it out loud. This son-in-law living alone truly has no prospects. Mother Gu couldn't help but retort, "Dad, can you please not treat Tan Tang so strangely? If you really look down on him, we can move out." Father Gu spoke up, wanting to mediate between the two and save the situation. It's my fault for looking forward to our daughter's return too much." Grandfather Gu was also helpless against his own daughter. "You really are Before he could finish speaking, he was faced with two pairs of cold, sharp eyes from Mother Gu and Gu Weilon. In the end, he had to drop the previous topic. All right, let's eat first. Mother Gu picked up a piece of salmon with sauce for her. Here, Weilon, try this. Father Gu competed with his wife to put food in his daughter's bowl. Daughter, try this dish. You'll definitely like it. Gu Weilon looked apologetically at her heaping bowl of rice. At this moment, Grandfather Gu suddenly called her name, Weilon. That little marquis of the Fu family is named Fu Changlu. Do you still remember him? While trying to eat, Gu Weilon replied to her grandfather, I remember. What's wrong, grandfather? She recalled having briefly glanced at the documents about the noble families of the capital planet and had a slight impression of this name. Grandfather Gu continued, It's rare for you to be on leave this time. Tomorrow, make some time to have a meal with him. As for the location, grandfather will have someone arrange it. This statement from her grandfather made Gu Weilon cough. Cough, cough. Feeling she was being a bit impolite, she quickly took a napkin to wipe her mouth and asked, Grandfather, are you trying to set me up on a blind date? Grandfather Gu calmly replied while sipping his water, It's just a meal. If you could take it a step further to cultivate the relationship, that would be even better. Hearing this, Mother Gu, who was beside her, whispered to her, Vivi, you don't have to force yourself. If you feel you're not compatible with that little marquis, just let it go. Gu Weilon replied awkwardly, I know. She thought to herself, how could I possibly be in the mood for romance right now? At this moment, in Ying's residence, Yingwu retied the belt of his bathrobe and slowly walked down the stairs. After seeing the service robot, he asked, Where is Special Assistant Gu? The robot quickly explained, Greetings, Commander. Assistant Gu Weilon is currently on leave for a period of 3 days. Yingwu sat down at the table and continued coldly. So for the next 3 days, I don't have a special assistant anymore. At this, he flew into a rage, so angry that both his hands trembled. As arranged by both families, Gu Weilon was now sitting at a dining table with her blind date. It was none other than Fu Changlu, the little marquis of the Fu family. He got straight to the point. You were also arranged to come here by your family, right? Seeing how direct he was, Gu Weilon didn't hide it either and replied with a smile. It seems you are too. Fu Changlu brushed that aside, then amicably introduced himself and extended his hand to get to know her. Well, let's not mind our families. Let's be friends first. My name is Fu Changlu. She returned his handshake and introduced herself. Hello, I'm Gu Weilon. Just as she finished speaking, the voice of a waiter from the side rang out. Is that Miss Gu? Miss Gu, please take a moment to check your planetary phone. Hearing the waiter say this, Gu Weilon was stunned for a moment. A planetary phone? As soon as she opened it, she immediately discovered she had missed 39 calls from Commander Ing because she had accidentally left it on Do Not Disturb mode. At this moment, she became alarmed and worried. Did something happen at the military headquarters? Gu Weilon immediately called Yingwu back. While waiting for the call to connect, she took the opportunity to apologize for her impoliteness to Fu Changlu. Excuse me, I need to take this call. As soon as the call connected, Yingwu immediately bombarded her with questions. Where did you put the watch I wore last time I went to the 4th planet? Hearing this, Gu Weilon was so exasperated she didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She thought to herself, just for a watch, was it necessary to make so many calls? Gu Weilon cleared her throat and answered, Sir, it's in the second drawer of the nightstand by your bed. Sure enough, after receiving the answer he wanted, Yingwu unhesitatingly hung up the phone. She turned to Fu Changlu in embarrassment and said, I'm so sorry, but seemed he didn't mind such minor details much, so he quickly waved it off. It's all right, let's continue. Just as Fu Changlu finished speaking, her watch vibrated again with a notification, making the two of them look at each other awkwardly. Gu Weilon quickly answered the call. Commander, is there anything else? Hearing this, Yingwu immediately sensed something was wrong. Are you being impatient? Put on the spot by Yingwu, Gu Weilon became anxious, and her reply became jumbled. No, I just wanted to say that there are actually many other styles in the dressing room. Yingwu immediately retorted, Special Assistant Gu, I am looking for the watch I wore when I went to the 4th planet. Feeling she had misspoken, she quickly covered her face with her hand, but still tried to answer all of Yingwu's questions. Yes, sir. Then I will tell Adjutant Gao about the watch's location in a bit. Can I ask Adjutant Gao to go there and look for it? Yingwu continued with his difficult behavior. Who gave you permission to let other people in my house? Hearing this, her heart skipped a beat and her cheeks flushed slightly. Don't say things that are so easily misunderstood. Gu Wei-lan thought cautiously. Ahem, Gu Wei-lan, this is just the strong territorial awareness of a demon who has differentiated into a human. He's like this because of his instinct to protect his territory. Don't overthink it. She carefully explained the reason to him. The thing is, sir, I'm in Anqing right now and can't return immediately. Ingwu irritably pushed his hair back, then decided to put on his glasses. He said something that shocked Gu Wei-lan. I'm already in Anqing, here to pick you up, until she heard the engine sound of the warship outside. Gu Wei-lan still couldn't believe her ears and let out a stunned huh. Her whole body seemed frozen, stuck to the table, and oh, it can't be. Her eyes widened, and her mouth hung open in surprise. Outside, people were also in a panic when they saw the warship in the sky. My God, what major event has happened? Why is a warship here? Mommy, I'm scared. A familiar figure descended amidst the lights from the warship's bay. That person was none other than the tyrannical, domineering Ingwu. Seeing this scene, Gu Wei-lan had to ask herself, is Ingwu out of his mind? Ingwu quickly walked to the table where Gu Wei-lan and Fu Chenglu were sitting. Fu Chenglu silently sized up the newcomer. Seeing Gu Wei-lan sitting, eating, and chatting with another man, Ingwu furrowed his brows in displeasure. Then he stared intently at Fu Chenglu, making him feel uncomfortable. However, Ingwu didn't pay him much mind and turned to order Gu Wei-lan bluntly. Let's go. She turned to him awkwardly and whispered, Commander, I have an appointment. At this point, Fu Chenglu spoke up to help Gu Wei-lan. Sir, as far as I know, Miss Gu is currently on leave. Ingwu glanced at him coldly and said seriously, it seems you are unaware of the special nature of our work. Emergency situation, leave is canceled. Hearing this strange rule for the first time, Fu Chenglu didn't know how to respond and could only watch in silence as Ingwu grabbed his own blind date's hand and pulled her away. Even Gu Wei-lan was surprised by Ingwu's action. He's holding my hand. Without a word, he tightened his grip on her hand and pulled her away from the table, not even bothering to say a single word of farewell to Fu Chenglu. At this moment, Gu Wei-lan recalled the day Ingwu's sensitive period acted up, how sweet and clingy he was, making her blush at how cute she found him. Feeling too embarrassed, she consciously erased that sweet memory, not wanting to remember it. After returning to Ingwu's castle in the Empire Federation, Gu Wei-lan said to Ingwu, I'll go find that watch, and quickly pushed open the door to his room. Ingwu gave a cold, letting her enter his room. Gu Wei-lan walked to the nightstand drawer and gently opened it. She found the watch lying there obediently. She was furious inside, just as I thought. She turned around, holding the watch, and questioned him. It was in the drawer I told the commander about. Who would have thought? Ingwu casually took the watch and even feigned innocence, replying, I opened it and looked but didn't see it. Assistant Gu must have hidden it too well. In her mind, she was now imagining herself beating him until he was bruised and bleeding. This bastard, he wouldn't even lift a finger to look for something, and now he was blaming her? Gu Wei-lan tried to suppress her anger and asked gently, I will be more careful in the future. Does the commander have any other arrangements? Hearing this, Ingwu remained silent. Gu Wei-lan pouted in annoyance, waiting for him to give her an answer. Suddenly, he flashed a cunning smile. Then he opened the schedule panel to inform her. The Federation president wants to open a transit station on Planet Sitten. I have to go to Planet Sitten for a business trip. He turned to look at her and emphasized, so you have to come with me. Gu Wei-lan protested indignantly, but I'm still on leave. Ingwu took a teacup from the service robot and asked again in a deep voice, leave. After taking a sip, he put the teacup down because the phone kept ringing incessantly. Beep, beep, beep. Ingwu casually sat down and coldly asked the person on the other end of the line, what is it? Duke Ying's face appeared on the screen, and he questioned angrily. The Planetary Aviation Bureau just detected your warship entering the Anqing area. Is this true or false? He didn't intend to be long-winded, replying concisely, it's true. Hearing his son's words, Duke Ying became even angrier, shouting, I need a reasonable explanation. Ingwu took the opportunity to set a condition. Didn't you also have everyone in the military hide the matter of my sensitive period from me? On the contrary, I want to know what kind of woman was with me that night, to be able to receive such thorough concealment from Duke Ying. Put on the spot, Duke Ying brushed it off that don't change the subject. That was just an unimportant woman, so you don't need to be distracted by this small matter. The unimportant woman, Gu Wei-lan, was also getting a headache from his difficult son. After hearing this, Ingwu just said, "Oh." Duking became even angrier. "I have no way to talk properly with a rebellious son like you." Gu Weilan sighed to herself. "Oh no, trouble is brewing." Just then, Ingwu also glanced over at her, making her feel extremely uncomfortable. He was clearly the one in the wrong. So how did he have the nerve to look at her? Ingwu suddenly shot her a look and asked, "Don't want to listen?" This attitude again reminded her of his clingy and adorable appearance on the day his sensitive period acted up, making her face flush with embarrassment. But she quickly pushed aside those silly thoughts. Cuteness was all an illusion. The insufferable boss in front of her was the real Ingwu. He quickly said to his father, "If there's an issue, come to me." "Why are you looking for her?" "I'm hanging up. Assistant Gu doesn't want to take the call." Gu Weilan breathed a sigh of relief. At least he has some conscience. Less than a minute later, the phone on her watch rang again. Beep beep. Gu Weilan looked at him and said, "Duke Ing is calling." Ingwu said magnanimously, "Give it here. I'll hang up for you." She pouted at his detestable face and thought to herself, "Are you trying to get me killed faster?" As soon as the call connected, he unleashed a tirade. "Assistant Gu, I initially chose you to be by Ingwu's side because I valued your workability. I hope you can be responsible for your work. What kind of job did you do this time, huh?" Gu Weilan didn't have time to argue with Duke Ing. "I will do my best," Gu Weilan promised him. Duke Ing said with a headache, "It's not about trying your best. It's about making him work normally." "What on earth were you thinking?" Gu Weilan stammered awkwardly. Glancing over and seeing Ing Wu casually sipping tea made her even angrier. "How am I supposed to know what that guy is thinking?" Duke Ing said sternly, "I hope this won't happen a second time." After saying that, he hung up with a click. Only then could Gu Weilan breathe a sigh of relief. Just as she glanced over, she saw an infuriating sight. She said angrily, "Commander Ing, you can still smile?" He spoke casually without a hint of guilt. "I've implicated you." Of course, Gu Weilan wasn't foolish enough not to sense it, and said sarcastically, "I couldn't tell that Commander Ing was sincerely apologizing to me at all." Ing Wu smiled cunningly. "Is that so? What would be considered sincere?" Gu Weilan held out her hand with a condition, at least a pay raise. She placed her hand on the armrest of the chair, leaned close to him, and said, "Being called back to work by the commander during my leave, asking for a raise isn't too much to ask, is it?" Ingwu narrowed his eyes and retorted, "Before Assistant Gu went on leave, are you sure you completed all the tasks I assigned you?" Gu Weilan replied confidently, "Of course." Ingwu said with interest, "Oh, then Assistant Gu, tell me, have you found the woman I told you to investigate?" Gu Weilan thought in confusion. "Seriously, weren't we talking about a raise? How did we suddenly get back to the topic of the sensitive period?" Ingwu said smugly, "It seems Assistant Gu has not yet completed her work." Gu Weilan hurriedly tried to explain. "No, Commander Ing, listen to me." Who would have thought Ingwu would raise his index finger to signal her to stop? Then he decisively negotiated with Gu Weilan. "How about this? I'll give Assistant Gu a chance to redeem herself. You go on the business trip to Sitten with me now, and after we return, we'll discuss the raise." Gu Weilan was still a little hesitant and didn't dare to make a decision. Ingwu understood what she was worried about and assured her, "Don't worry, Assistant Gu won't be at a disadvantage." A moment later, Mother Gu found out and called to check on her. She couldn't bear to be apart from her daughter after just seeing her for a short while. "Vivi, why did you go back to the military headquarters right after starting your leave? Weren't you supposed to have 3 days off?" Gu Weilan comforted her mother. "Mom, there's an urgent matter at the military headquarters. I have to go back to handle it. Once it's done, I'll make time to come back to you and Dad." After saying that, she felt a pang of guilt, although she was a bit embarrassed to say it, but what he offered was really a lot. Mother Gu wiped her tears. "All right then, remember to take a longer leave next time." Gu Weilan smiled and replied, "Yes, I know." Mother Gu quickly set a condition. "Next time you come back, you have to go shopping with me. Next time you come back, Dad is waiting to teach you how to cook to try his latest research results. Yes. Next time you come back, Grandfather still wants to beat you at a few games of chess. Yes." Gu Weilan hurriedly said goodbye to her mother. "I have to get to work, Mom. Mom and Dad, take care of your health and yourselves. See you next time. I love you both." After saying goodbye, she pressed the button to end the call. As soon as she turned around, she was startled by Ingwu's appearance. He looked at her and said sarcastically, "Assistant Gu really knows how to sweet-talk people." Hearing this, Gu Weilan was bewildered, not knowing why he would suddenly say that. Ingwu gave an unreadable smile and continued, "Let's go." She quickly called him back. "Commander Ing, wait a moment." She then probed, "I want to know how you knew my location in the restaurant today." Ingwu replied nonchalantly, "I had Ji now look it up." Gu Weilan frowned and said, "In the future, the commander is not allowed to abuse his privileges to investigate my personal whereabouts again." Ingwu sighed as he adjusted his hair. He negotiated with her. "Let's each take a step back. If Assistant Gu guarantees she will answer my calls from now on, I will agree to your terms." Their hands brushed against each other. Ingwu pulled her hand closer to him and looked at her intently, saying, "Deal." In the Duanjiang River guest house, Planet Sitten, Gu Weilan opened the control panel to check. She went outside, holding a red seed. She looked at it and thought to herself, "A demon who has differentiated into a human needs to periodically consume devil fruit to replenish the crystal energy inside their body. Luckily, the soil here can also grow it." Gu Weilan continued to open the control panel to report. "Confirm the surroundings are safe. You can rest assured. It is now 9 o'clock. The bathroom's heating mode has been activated. The commander can complete his bath on time." She returned to the bathroom to check the temperature. Okay, the water temperature is just right. She used her own hand to test the water temperature for him. Ingwu, who was behind her, saw this action and called out to her, "Assistant Gu." Gu Weilan turned around with a start. You're right on time. I was just about to inform you that you can take your bath now." At this moment, Ingwu no longer had the mind to pay attention to her words. His attention was focused on her slender waist and long, fair legs. To prevent himself from being impolite, Ingwu cleared his throat and said to Gu Weilan, "You, Assistant Gu, please stand up first." His attitude made her feel a bit strange Then he hurriedly shooed her out. "All right, you can go now. Good night." Gu Weilan stared blankly at the door that slammed shut in front of her and wondered blankly, what's wrong with him now? So moody and unpredictable. She went back to her room, changed her clothes, and flopped onto the bed, sighing, I'm dead tired. Finally, I can lie down and sleep." She had barely closed her eyes for a few seconds when a loud knocking sound came from outside. Gu Weilan glanced at the door, annoyed. She went to open the door in her sexy pajamas and questioned irritably, "Who is it?" It turned out the person outside was Ingwu. He hugged a pillow tightly and tattled, "Assistant Gu, there's a bug in my room." Gu Weilan was speechless, not knowing what to say to him, thinking to herself, in the middle of the night, "Just for this? He ran over here to lecture me." She suddenly realized, wait a minute. Ingwu's hands gripped the pillow tightly. Could it be that he's the one who's scared? At this moment, his whole body trembled. Gu Weilan asked Ingwu, "Where is the bug?" While hugging the pillow tightly, he used one hand to point towards his bed, over there, 10 centimeters to the right of the headboard. Having located it, Gu Weilan quickly walked over. She swatted it with a towel with a smack, squashing the bug inside. Then she calmly threw it into the trash can without a trace of fear. She yawned and announced to him, "It's done. It's dead. I'm going back to my room to sleep." Who knew that before she could leave? Ingwu grabbed her by the wrist and pulled her back. Gu Weilan turned back to look at him, stunned. She wondered curiously, what does this guy want to do now? What met her eyes was Ingwu's pitiful, pouting expression. He stared at her with pleading eyes, making her heart soften, not knowing what to do. Seeing her silence, his gaze became even more intense. Only then did she gently ask, "Is the commander still very scared?" But to maintain his dignity, Ingwu quickly retracted that look and replied coldly, "No." Gu Weilan sighed wearily to herself. "He's really a handful. I'm so sleepy." Having no other choice, she could only push him away and take the blame herself. All right. I'm the one who's scared, okay?" She pointed to the bed and said, "You lie down. I'll watch over you." That was all he was waiting for. Ingwu quickly climbed into bed, pulled the blanket up to his chin, and replied, "Okay." Under his watchful gaze, Gu Weilan could only sigh, thinking to herself, "He's my boss. I can only indulge him." Ingwu lay on the bed, while Gu Weilan sat on the sofa with her arms crossed. The wind from outside blew the curtains in the room, creating a beautiful scene. At this moment, Gu Weilan, being too tired, had fallen asleep on the chair. Of course, Ingwu was no exception. He had fallen asleep even before her out of fear. Because she was sleeping so soundly, her body swayed and tilted to one side. Luckily, before her head could hit the armrest, Ingwu caught it. It was unclear whether it was an illusion, but the look in his eyes as he gazed at Gu Wei-lan was somewhat affectionate. Then Ingwu wrapped his arm around her shoulder. Gently, he pulled her into his arms and then lifted her up. He carefully placed her on the bed, even thoughtfully tucking her in. Then he fell asleep on the edge of the bed while watching over his little girl. While they slept, their hands seemed to have some kind of connection, drawn to each other. The next morning, when the sun cast its first rays through the window, only then did Gu Wei-lan wake up with a start. What met her eyes was a note left by Ingwu. I'm going to the site. You don't need to follow me. Go find a local medical rescue team to sort out the documents. Pick me up this afternoon when I get off work. As she read the note he left, she wondered, he left a note and just went? In the past, he always took me with him wherever he went. Why is it different this time? Also, why am I on the bed? Could it be that I sleepwalked last night and pulled Ingwu off the bed, and now he's holding a grudge? Gu Wei-lan tiredly brushed aside all her jumbled thoughts. Forget it. I won't think about it anymore. It's rare to get a break. I couldn't ask for it. Time passes quickly when you're lazing around. In the blink of an eye, half a day had gone by. Gu Wei-lan thought today would pass by very peacefully, but she never expected to meet someone she didn't expect. Knock, knock, knock. A steady knocking sound came from the door. As soon as she turned her head to look, she exclaimed in surprise. Senior, Song-Ming Zhe. Gu Wei-lan Sr. from military school quickly replied, I heard the station chief say someone from the first planet was here. It turns out it's you, Wei-lan. He handed her a document and said, this document is for you. You might need it. Gu Wei-lan took it and replied happily, thank you, Senior. This was the only document I was missing. Finally, the material documents for the medical equipment have all been collected. Song-Ming Zhe then invited her for a drink. If the work is done, then let's go downstairs for coffee. It's rare for us to meet. I missed you too. Gu Wei-lan immediately agreed. Yes, it just so happens I have a few things about medical technology one need to discuss with you. With her senior's company, Gu Wei-lan spent an afternoon full of academic exchange. Unconsciously, it was already time to pick up Ingwu from work. After finishing the conversation, Gu Wei-lan got in the car and said goodbye to Song-Ming Zhe. Senior, I have to go pick up my superior now. When the supplies from the first planet arrive, I'll let you know. Song-Ming Zhe also showed concern, carefully reminding her, okay, the roads here aren't very good. Be careful on your way. Her car drove smoothly on the road leading to the sea. After a while, Gu Wei-lan got out of the car. She glanced around, looking for Ingwu's figure. Where is he? She quickly found his location. Ah, Commander Ing is over there. He was holding something in his hand, his eyes focused, looking extremely concentrated. However, his clothes and limbs were covered in mud. Seeing this, she frowned. These clothes are so dirty. As if sensing something, Ingwu glanced around. Then he handed the device he was holding to the staff member next to him. Take this. Ingwu walked quickly over to Gu Wei-lan and pretended to ask, what did you get here? Gu Wei-lan replied politely, I just arrived not long ago. Are you finished with your work, Commander? He casually grunted and then asked, did you bring candy? Yes. She immediately put her hand in her pocket to find the candy. Gu Wei-lan handed him a lollipop. Ingwu reached out to take it, but realized his hands were too dirty. So he said, I'll go wash. But before he could finish, she asked, do you need me to unwrap it for you? Ingwu remained silent. Gu Wei-lan also said nothing, waiting for his decision. A moment later, he put his hands in his pockets and answered. Gu Wei-lan carefully unwrapped the candy and held it out in front of Ingwu. Unexpectedly, Ingwu didn't take it with his hand, but instead leaned down to take it directly with his mouth. He slowly took the candy into his mouth. As he did, Gu Wei-lan's hand accidentally brushed against Ingwu's lips. Gu Wei-lan was startled and quickly pulled her hand back. Ingwu immediately noticed her flustered action. Gu Wei-lan blushed, quickly turned her back to him, and said, let's go then. Her heart pounded. Thump, thump. It wouldn't stop, making her feel too shy to be near him. Ingwu was even more bewildered, not understanding what was wrong with her to cause such a strong reaction. Just as she was about to open the car door to get in, he raised his hand to block the door, preventing her from opening it. Gu Wei-lan turned back and asked, what is it, Commander? Unexpectedly, their positions made her even more uncomfortable. Her face and Ingwu's were now so close they could hear each other's breathing. Gu Wei-lan anxiously pressed her hands against the car to keep her balance. Ingwu leaned close to her neck and sniffed for a moment. Then he took the candy out of his mouth and asked probingly, "Assistant Gu, where did you go today?" But she didn't answer his question, instead staring at the candy and thinking to herself, "I didn't expect that a sweet peach flavor could also attract people like that." Ingwu hated it when people lost focus while talking to him, and he narrowed his eyes in anger, zoning out. Gu Weilon knew she had been rude, hurriedly pushed him away, and replied, "Ahem, I just went to the hospital." Ingwu wouldn't back down, immediately retorting, "To the hospital? Why do you smell like coffee and have had physical contact with another man?" Hit a nerve. She was startled. A miscalculation. I forgot his sense of smell is different from a normal person's. Gu Weilon had no choice but to stammer out the truth. I met a senior who used to work at the hospital. After finishing work, we had coffee and chatted for a while. In the middle of it, some coffee spilled, so he helped me wipe it off. She was about to say more, but thought she shouldn't reveal too much and stopped. "Never mind. These things don't need to be reported to you, right?" After hearing this, Ingwu showed no emotion, just put the candy back in his mouth and gave coldom. Then he left her standing there, stunned, and got into the car by himself. Only when the car door slammed shut did she come to her senses. Is he angry? As she walked to open her car door, she thought distractedly, "Why? That's right, he must be suffering and working hard at the construction site, while an assistant like me is out drinking coffee with someone else. It's right to be angry. Besides, he's possessive. I'm his assistant, but I have another man's scent on me, which is also an offense to him. From now on, I should avoid these mistakes during work hours," she told herself while fastening her seatbelt. Then she glanced at the back seat, but seeing his pouting, angry face, she thought to herself, the commander being angry is also kind of cute. Thinking this, she immediately felt cheerful, her guilt lessening somewhat. 2 hours later, when the two of them arrived, the sky was already dark. Gu Weilon stretched to relax her muscles, finally done with work. She took a cigarette out of its pack. Then she flicked a lighter and lit it. She stood alone, smoking in the night, her sad eyes gazing into the distance. Gu Weilon brought the cigarette to her lips and took a long drag, thinking to herself, he's probably asleep. At this moment, the curtains in Ingwu's room were drawn, tightly shut without a sound. Gu Weilon thought sadly to herself, "Why do I feel so strangely troubled today?" Above, Ingwu was secretly parting the curtains to watch her figure. As if feeling his burning gaze, Gu Weilon looked up. Seeing her look up, Ingwu froze for a few seconds. Then he hurriedly closed the curtains and turned his back to the window. A moment later, Gu Weilon heard footsteps and looked over. She panicked and hid the cigarette behind her back, greeting him Commander. Ingwu deliberately reminded her, "I remember Assistant Gu didn't use to smoke." Gu Weilon confessed, "It's just that I didn't smoke in front of you before, Commander." Ingwu then probed why. She didn't hesitate to speak her mind. "Isn't it because you don't like it, Commander?" She thought to herself, "Isn't that a common trait of everyone in the military department?" Ingwu turned his face away and replied, "It's not that I don't like it." Hearing this, Gu Weilon blushed and froze for a moment. Gu Weilon and Ingwu didn't know what to say. The two just stared at each other in silence. Then, being the less thick-skinned one, Ingwu decided to break the silence first. He gave a fake cough. "Ahem, come to the mining site with me tomorrow." After saying that, he quickly left, showing no reluctance to leave, leaving Gu Weilon to stare blankly at his retreating back. After he was out of sight, she wondered why did he say those things. Early the next morning, at the monitoring station, Gu Weilon slowly poured water from a kettle into a cup. Meanwhile, Ingwu sat beside her, staring intently at the computer screen. Gu Weilon was sad, looking down and thinking to herself, "So he just told me to come here to pour water?" Thinking this, she opened her mouth to suggest, "Commander, how about I go down and help?" Unexpectedly, Ingwu blurted out a silly question. "What if I get thirsty later?" However, this question left Gu Weilon speechless, and she could only curse inwardly as he drank water. "Let you die of thirst." At this moment, the diplomatic officer of Planet Sifo came in to report to Ingwu, "Commander, the basic construction of the transit station is proceeding very smoothly. If we continue at this pace, I believe Planet Sifo can open the first transit station with other planets." Ingwu nodded slightly upon hearing this. Very good. After receiving Ing Wu's praise, the diplomatic officer obsequiously tried to curry favor. Commander Ing, we're finishing early today. Would you like to have a little get-together tonight? Gu Weilon knew the commander didn't like crowds and was just about to politely decline, I'm sorry, but she was cut off by Ing Wu. He immediately agreed without hesitation. Okay. Hearing this, Gu Weilon paused. She wondered to herself, I don't know where he got the interest from today. The lights in the VIP room of the class hotel were still on. A while later, when the party was over, Ing Wu and Gu Weilon went down to the parking garage together. Although Gu Weilon was very worried about him, she only dared to observe and think to herself, he drank so much just now. Is he still okay? I don't dare to ask him directly. Recalling the situation earlier, Ing Wu didn't refuse anyone. Commander, I'll toast you. We'll toast you too. His glass was refilled as soon as it was empty, until Gu Weilon couldn't watch anymore and stood up to stop them, like a mother hen protecting her chick. The commander can't drink anymore, please understand. Only then did Ing Wu show a sly smile, as if his goal had been achieved. She watched his retreating figure and thought to herself, he can find the parking spot, so it seems he's not drunk. Half an hour later, the two of them returned to their residence. It was already pitch dark, with countless stars shining in the sky. Gu Weilon unfastened her seatbelt and said to Ing Wu, Commander, we're here. Let's get out of the car. He said nothing, just calmly stared at her. Gu Weilon thought he was signaling for her to open the car door, so she quickly leaned over towards the door next to him. She sighed inwardly, yes, this young master. If you don't want to open the door, I'll do it. The expression on her face immediately revealed her panic. Why has he turned into his demon form? Unexpectedly, before she could even touch the door handle, his love tail suddenly appeared and wrapped around her hand. Ing Wu quickly pulled her close and hugged her waist tightly. The pair of horns, a symbol of his sensitive period, had reappeared on his head. Gu Weilon was still so surprised her mouth was agape. Stammering, Commander, before she could say anything, her arm was pulled forcefully by him. Then Ing Wu pressed Gu Weilon against the other side of the car, causing her to cry out in pain. Huh? Gu Weilon blushed and said gently to Ing Wu, let me go. At this moment, he panted in response. Wait a moment. She looked at him with concern and said, You, let go of your tail first. As she spoke, she looked at the tail wrapped tightly around her waist from behind. Ing Wu followed her gaze and wondered. Why? She irritably warned him, Commander, if you keep this up, I'll report you to the Federation. Hearing this, he obediently withdrew his tail from her waist. Only then could Gu Weilon relax a little. Fortunately, he's still obedient. The two of them got out of the car at the same time. Gu Weilon deliberately ran faster, as if trying to escape from this place. As she was about to escape, she thought, sobering up medicine. Where's the sobering up medicine? He must be drunk to be acting like this. However, Gu Weilon hadn't taken more than a few steps before she saw Ing Wu standing in front of her, blocking her way. Assistant Gu, where are you going? Gu Weilon replied curtly, not daring to look him in the eye, to get sobering up medicine. Ing Wu reacted quickly and immediately grabbed her wrist. Gu Weilon turned back to look at him blankly. The distance between their bodies gradually narrowed. Ing Wu looked at her and said with certainty, I'm not. The seemingly romantic atmosphere was suddenly broken by an ill-timed, tactless burp that ruined the mood. Ing Wu's face turned pale with embarrassment, while Gu Weilon immediately pulled her hand back, looking at him with a hint of disdain. The smell of alcohol from the burp was so strong, yet he still said he was not drunk. Medicine. Ing Wu looked impatiently at Gu Weilon's constantly moving back. A moment later, he couldn't stand it anymore and pulled her hand up. Gu Weilon turned back to look at him blankly. Ing Wu pulled Gu Weilon's wrist and placed it on his chest. He seriously explained to her, according to the results of my brain scan, it's because just now in the car, Assistant Gu's distance from me was too close. Touching me will cause my brain to release more dopamine than usual. Gu Weilon felt that Ing Wu was increasingly saying abnormal things. What nonsense is this guy spouting now? She handed him the open bottle of medicine and questioned him. Am I the doctor, or are you the doctor? Who listens to whom? Ing Wu was stunned for a moment, then snatched the bottle from her hand. He picked it up and gulped it down like water. Ing Wu looked at her with affectionate eyes. Assistant Gu. Gu Weilon raised her hand to stop him from saying anything more. She said bluntly, Stop. The commander can go back to his room to rest now. We still have to work tomorrow. Even though Gu Weilon had said everything she could, Ing Wu shamelessly asked again, What about me? You're the one who made my tail come out. You can't just abandon it like this. She wearily massaged her aching head and explained, when the medicine takes effect, the commander will calm down. Then you'll return to your original form. Does Assistant Gu mean that I'm not calm right now? Gu Weilon cursed in her heart. Am I wrong? But on the surface, she still had to endure, patiently explaining, what I mean is, after you sober up, the commander will be fine. Ingwu pulled her close to him, whispering, you still don't believe that I'm not drunk. She thought angrily to herself, I can't listen anymore. Why does he make less sense the more he talks? After thinking, she forcefully pushed him away. Then she backed away towards the door. Commander, please come in. Ingwu deliberately put on a pitiful expression, but failed to attract her attention. He then angrily sulked and went inside. Before entering, his tail brushed against Gu Weilon's hand. Then he slammed the door shut, leaving her outside, embarrassed, her face as red as a ripe tomato. She looked at her palm, curiously. What's going on? It suddenly feels itchy. After returning to her room, Gu Weilon kept drinking water as if she were about to die of thirst. She was wearing a sexy two-piece dress with a white robe over it, tilting her head back to take large gulps of water. Only after finishing a third of the bottle did she put it down, sighing in relief. Phew, finally calmed down. Unexpectedly, she hadn't been comfortable for long when the phone rang again. Toot, toot, toot. It turned out to be Duke Ing calling to inquire about the situation. Assistant Gu, how is Ingwu doing on planet Sifo? Gu Weilon replied calmly. Under the commander's development, the progress of the transit station is very smooth. Please rest assured, Duke. He nodded. That's good. This time the president sent the boy to planet Sifo on business, mainly to train his character. Sometimes Ingwu works very independently. When you and the boy come back, remember to advise him to visit the mansion. After hearing this, Gu Weilon thought to herself, I don't think Ingwu will listen to what I say. Ingwu is the superior, and I'm just a special assistant by his side. Although she thought so, she still replied calmly, I understand, Your Grace. Good. Then he hung up. Gu Weilon dismissed it. Forget it. I'll deal with it later. Gu Weilon prepared to relax. Finally, I can go to sleep. Today was another day of trivial matters. Unexpectedly, just as she lay down, a knock came at the door. Gu Weilon angrily jumped out of bed and went to the door. I really think Wu is doing this on purpose. Otherwise, why does he always come and bother me every time I'm about to go to sleep? She shouted in a fiery rage. Commander Ing, do you really not care about your assistant's life or death? Why are you? She trailed off when she saw his appearance. Ingwu looked pitiful and innocent, hugging a pillow tightly. His eyes were teary as he looked into her room. Then he whispered to Gu Weilon, Vivi, I missed you. She recalled the situation from earlier and thought to herself, wasn't Ingwu still normal just now? Why is he suddenly like last night? Ingwu began to sob, his tears welling up as if about to flow into a river. Sobi sobi. Even his cute little tail was trembling. Vivi, sobi sobi. Ingwu hugged the pillow tightly, covering his face and continuing to sob, and she didn't even care about me right away. Gu Weilon rested her hand on her forehead and sighed. Haze, no sleep tonight. Gu Weilon gently pushed Ingwu's hand away and gently negotiated with him. Ingwu, can I go back to your room first? The horns on his head immediately drooped. Then he started to tear up and whimper, looking pitiful. He whispered to her, I don't want to sleep alone. Gu Weilon observed his attitude and thought to herself, under normal circumstances, a demon in its sensitive period must receive stable appeasement. Otherwise, the demon will completely lose its human reason and be overwhelmed by the demon within. But now he's in this situation. Thinking of this, she sighed in a difficult position. Haze, forget it. Gu Weilon reluctantly pointed in her room and said to him, come in. While she was having a headache about what to do next, a sly expression of achieving his goal appeared on Ingwu's face. By the time Gu Weilon glanced over, she saw that Ingwu had already climbed onto the bed on his own, obediently adjusting the pillows and blankets. He even carefully placed 2 pillows side by side. He was so meticulous that he pulled the blanket up to his neck. Seeing that Gu Weilon wasn't getting into bed, he stared at her and even enthusiastically patted the spot next to him and called out, Vivi, come here, let's go to sleep. Gu Weilon closed her eyes, took a deep breath, and decided to coax this guy to sleep first, then report this sudden situation to the Federation. She gently lay down on the bed. The next second, Ingwu unexpectedly pounced, hugging her waist from behind with a flushed face. Then he quickly tried to take off Gu Weilon's clothes, leaving her so surprised her mouth was agape. He pulled her closer to his body and affectionately, called Vivi. I missed you. As he spoke, Ingwu took the opportunity to slip his hand inside her nightgown. Of course, Gu Weilon was still sober enough to pull his hand away. Then she questioned, "Didn't you want to go to sleep? What are you doing?" Ingwu continued to hug her tightly and nuzzled his head into her shoulder, acting cute. "I want to hug Vivi." This time she was really angry, raising her voice to warn him, "Ingwu, if you keep this up, I won't want you anymore." Ingwu was immediately frightened, quickly backing away, sniffling and hoping she would soften. Seeing that Gu Weilon had no reaction, he had to give up and lie down obediently. Only then did she lie down next to him, gently pulling up the blanket. She reminded him one more time, "You can only hug me to sleep, nothing else." Although she allowed him to hug her, Ingwu still put on a pitiful and innocent expression. He even shamelessly complained, "Vivi, why aren't you hugging me anymore?" Gu Weilon blushed and thought to herself, "Stop calling me by my nickname. I can't take it anymore." She pushed him away forcefully and shouted, "Go to sleep now." Gu Weilon closed her eyes and thought to herself, "Go to sleep now. When I wake up tomorrow morning, maybe Ingwu will have recovered his senses like last time." The next morning, when the sun was high in the sky, a nightingale sang sweetly outside the window. Hearing the sound, Gu Weilon was startled awake. She turned to see Ingwu still sleeping soundly and worried. "Oh no, I woke up late. If Ingwu has regained his senses and finds out that he and I slept in the same bed, how should I explain to him what happened last night?" While she was racking her brain for an excuse, Ingwu's warm voice sounded out. "Vivi," he cupped her face with both hands. He pulled her body close to his and whispered, "Good morning." He even shamelessly continued, "Can I kiss you on the lips?" Then he looked at her with heart-meltingly cute eyes. She blushed in this situation, then suddenly realized something important, which was that Ingwu hadn't woken up yet. Gu Weilon sighed inwardly. "Oh no, this time is not like last time." He hugged her tightly and nuzzled his head against her shoulder, looking very content, while Gu Weilon, on the contrary, was worried because her superior had a real problem. Ingwu leaned close to her neck, about to lick it, and although his desire was rising intensely, reason still held Gu Weilon back. She said firmly, no. But Ingwu deliberately ignored her words and bit her neck. At this moment, Gu Weilon was stunned and thought to herself, "Is he marking his territory?" Seeing that the situation was not good, she pushed him away and called out, "Ingwu." He put on a pitiful expression again, pretending to be innocent and calling her name, Vivi. Gu Weilon closed her eyes, not knowing how to handle the situation next. She pulled his arm away, cleared her throat, and warned him seriously, "You get off me right now." Seeing her angry face, Ingwu could only say "oh," and obediently moved to the end of the bed, sitting there and staring at her. Gu Weilon continued to order, "Go back to your room, wash your face, then change your clothes." After speaking, a thought occurred to her. He seems to be quite obedient today. Seeing her attitude soften, the tip of his tail perked up again. Ingwu looked obedient and asked politely, "What about Vivi?" She was about to answer. She reached out to smooth down the stray lock of his hair, but suddenly stopped. Unexpectedly, a second later, she suddenly got out of bed, slapped her left hand with her right hand that had just been about to play with his hair, and chanted in her heart, "Must resist, must resist." Then she replied coldly, "I'm going to make breakfast." She ignored Ingwu, who was bewildered and didn't understand what was happening. While making breakfast, Gu Weilon took the opportunity to call Professor Bai Luo to report Ingwu's situation. "Professor Bai Luo, that's what happened yesterday. Please take a look at the situation." Professor Bai Luo calmly inquired, "Did Commander Ing have a relationship with you this time?" This question made her a little embarrassed. Ahem, no. Professor Bai Luo reminded her, "Weilon, you need to tell me in detail about yesterday's situation." Gu Weilon was embarrassed and hesitated to say. Unexpectedly, before she could say anything, Ingwu suddenly appeared behind her, hugging her small waist tightly. He rested his head on her shoulder and whispered, "Vivi, who are you calling?" This sentence made even the experienced Professor Bai Luo blush and flee. "Weilon, let's talk later when it's more convenient for you." After saying that, he immediately hung up and ran away. Only then did Gu Weilon turn around and say to Ingwu, "Ingwu, stand up." Unexpectedly, as soon as she turned around, her eyes met Ingwu's pitiful, teary-eyed face. It made her heart pound, thump, thump, clearly audible. She turned back to the front in embarrassment, trying to calm down and act cold. "I'm making breakfast." Then she woke herself up. "Gu Weilon, be sober. Don't be mesmerized by him." Ingwu didn't sense her shyness, only expressing his dissatisfaction. "I heard you talking to someone else." Gu Weilon placed a glass of milk on the table and casually replied, "I was just asking Professor Bai Luo some questions about work, brother." She was about to say more when she stopped abruptly, realizing her thoughts were no longer the same as before. What am I explaining to him for? Wanting to correct her mistake, she immediately pointed outside the kitchen and ordered Ingwu, "You go out first," even though he was clinging to her very tightly. As expected of a patient in a susceptibility period, Ingwu's whiny nature immediately flared up. "But why can't I stay with Vivi?" Though Gu Weilon did not hesitate to retort, "Why can't you?" Ingwu replied weakly, "I'll be so uncomfortable I could die." The tears in his eyes looked like they could spill out at any moment. She coldly retorted, "You can't be so uncomfortable you could die." "Yes, you can." Gu Weilon put her hands on her hips and warned, "If you keep talking nonsense, your breakfast will be gone." Hearing this, Ingwu was too scared to say anything more. Seeing this, Gu Weilon softened again. She carried the breakfast tray out and called after him, "Let's go together, okay?" Which made Ingwu instantly happy. He then excitedly ran after her, unable to control his wagging tail. She set 2 servings on the table for them and said to Ingwu, "Eat up." Gu Weilon looked at him and thought to herself, "Before, during this time, I would use breakfast time to report the work schedule to him. But today." But when she saw his innocent expression, the way he excitedly drank his milk, this thought of hers immediately vanished. Forget it. Let the universe be destroyed. He happily held the glass of milk and sipped it. His tail kept wagging up and down like a child enjoying a delicious treat. After finishing, he even licked his hands clean. Only then did Gu Weilon realize with a headache, now that he's like this, how can the research continue? Ingwu quickly noticed her sad expression. He came closer, caressed her cheek, and called her name. "Vivi, are you unhappy?" Their faces were close to each other. Just a little more, and their lips would meet. Gu Weilon awkwardly turned her face away to avoid Ingwu's gaze and hummed perfunctorily. Suddenly, he pulled his hand back as if determined to do something. "Vivi, wait for me." After saying that, Ingwu immediately ran off, not giving Gu Weilon a chance to stop him. "Wait." Looking at his receding back, she thought to herself, "Forget it. I'll take this opportunity to contact Professor Bai Luo for a bit. To prevent him from hearing the voice when he comes back, I'll wear headphones." As soon as the call connected, Gu Weilon hurriedly reported the situation to Professor Bai Luo. "Professor," continuing on our previous topic, although this time the susceptibility period is very similar to the last one, this time he is basically very obedient to me. Basically, I don't let him do anything excessive. He will stop. Professor Bai Luo heard this and replied, "If there is no intercourse, then it is not a susceptibility period." Only then did Gu Weilon become bewildered. That's right, if it really was a susceptibility period, Ingwu wouldn't be able to control himself from touching me. Just as she thought of this, Ingwu's cute and slightly excited voice suddenly rang out, "Vivi, I'm back." She turned to look at him. "You're back?" She casually adjusted her headphones so he wouldn't notice. "Professor, please wait a moment." Professor Bai Luo, with tears in his eyes, lamented with a heavy heart, "I have to witness their public display of affection again." When Gu Weilon turned to look at him again, she was startled. He was covered in sweat, with leaves still in his hair, holding a basket of devil fruits and looking at her with a smile. Ingwu approached, held a devil fruit to her mouth, and said, "For Vivi, the fruit that I like to eat the most." His tail was even poised behind him to prevent her from backing away to refuse. They looked at each other affectionately, blushing shyly. The surroundings were so quiet that the sound of a heart thumping non-stop, could be heard. Gu Weilon stood her ground, turning her face away and gently refusing. "Ahem, I'm full from breakfast. I'm not hungry." Although Ingwu was sad, he didn't force her. "All right then." Then he obediently sat down at the table, placed the fruit basket on it, and looked at her with expectant eyes. "Then I'll work with Vivi." He even went so far as to eat a devil fruit while gazing at her. Gu Weilon was made shy by someone's intense gaze. "Stop looking. Why haven't you left yet?" At this moment, Professor Bai Luo suddenly spoke up. "That's right, Weilon. Quickly check the results of the devil fruit index from Sipu. It's very likely that the devil fruit is causing the soil and water to not be compatible." Hearing the professor, she had a realization. Right? Ingwu, sensitive to Gu Weilon's emotional change, asked her with concern, "What's wrong, Vivi? Do you need my help with anything?" Gu Weilon seized the opportunity and said with a smile, "Ingwu, I suddenly feel like eating again." Ingwu said without hesitation, Vivi, I will give you the sweetest devil fruit to eat. She quickly took the devil fruit from his hand and calmly replied, thank you. His incessantly wagging tail clearly showed his indescribable joy. Gu Weilon savored it bit by bit and exclaimed, so sweet. She brazenly continued in a coquettish manner, Ingwu, I still want to eat more. Can you give me your whole basket of devil fruits? She was worried in her heart. What if there's a problem with this fruit? It's better not to let him eat anymore. Ingwu asked quizzically, Vivi wants to take them all? Gu Weilon answered without hesitation, yes. Are you willing to give them to me? Without waiting for the next second, Ingwu immediately picked up the fruit basket and handed it to her, affirming resolutely, of course. Gu Weilon had already taken the whole basket, but she wouldn't even spare the one in his hand. She pointed at it and said, there's more. Ingwu realized she wanted the fruit in his hand. This time he hesitated a little, saying with a pout, I only have half a fruit left. But Gu Weilon was determined to see the act through. She pretended to raise her hand to wipe away tears, saying pitifully, you won't even give me half a fruit. Ingwu looked at the devil fruit one last time with longing. Then he decisively handed it to her, for Vivi. Gu Weilon took it, picked up the basket of devil fruits, and instructed him, be good, I'm going to the kitchen to handle these. As soon as she entered the kitchen, she held a fruit up to scan on the electronic watch. Beep. 2 words appeared on the screen. Scanning. After carefully observing the analysis chart, Gu Weilon came to a conclusion. It's true, the devil fruits grown on this planet Sipu really do have lower data than normal fruits. She quickly informed Professor Bailuo, I've sent the data to you, Professor. I guess the commander ate non-standard devil fruits here. This led to the crystal energy in his body becoming chaotic, which is why the susceptibility period reaction occurred. Professor Bailuo agreed. That's probably it. Weilon, pay attention. The commander's current condition is extremely dangerous. He could start panting at any moment. You must hold on to him first. Just as the professor finished speaking, Ingwu's black shoes appeared at the door, along with his coquettish voice calling her name. Vivi. Gu Weilon wearily rubbed her head. Speak of the devil. His handsome face showed extreme sadness, and his eyes were already welling up with tears. She quickly asked with concern, what's wrong? And thought to herself, he must be sad because I took his devil fruits. Who would have thought he would run over with his arms outstretched, wanting her to hug him, and sob, darling, we've been apart for 5 minutes, no hugs. Hearing this, Gu Weilon helplessly massaged her aching forehead. All this for such a small thing? Ingwu continued to sob pitifully. Because of work, Vivi doesn't care about me anymore. He even grabbed his own tail to torment it. I feel so wronged. He even bit his own tail to hide his crying, trying to win her sympathy. Gu Weilon couldn't bear to watch and squatted down, thinking to herself, this is so against the rules. It proves his cuteness is effective. Gu Weilon tried to take a deep breath to calm herself. Gu Weilon, calm down. This is just the state of a demon when it becomes frenzied. You have to handle it quickly. I absolutely cannot let this guy fall into a state of despair. Otherwise, the entire company will be destroyed. Thinking this, she pulled his tail away. Then she hugged him tightly to help him calm down. She patted his back comfortingly. It's okay, I was wrong. Ingwu's face was covered in tears. Does Vivi really know where she went wrong? Gu Weilon was uncomfortable, but didn't dare to let him go. This is so uncomfortable. I can barely breathe. She blushed and said shyly, I shouldn't have buried myself in work and ignored you. Gu Weilon was so embarrassed, she felt ashamed of herself, saying this feels so cringy. Receiving concern from the other person, Ingwu hugged her even tighter. Sob sob. That's great, Vivi. Gu Weilon thought to herself, why does this situation feel like a concubine who has just gone through a 5-minute anxious wait, alone in her room, finally getting a response? She even imagined herself dressed as an emperor, and him dressed as a concubine, clinging to her hand and crying, Your Majesty, you haven't favored this concubine for 5 minutes. But she quickly dismissed the thought. What kind of nonsense am I thinking? Delete. She continued to coax him. Good Ingwu, don't cry anymore. Gu Weilon hugged him tightly, sighed, and thought to herself, before Ingwu returns to his normal state, it seems I really can't leave him alone. Suddenly, Ingwu called her name, Vivi. She immediately replied, Huh? What's wrong? Who would have thought that at this moment? The phone would ring continuously. The caller was Du King. Gu Weilon thought worriedly, It's Du King. Why is he calling me at a time Like this? She hurriedly let go of him to check her phone, not noticing that he was looking at her very angrily. Ingwu immediately reached out and hung up on Duking, scaring her so much that her face turned pale. Ingwu held her face, pulled her close, and whispered, "Vivi, I won't allow your eyes to leave me ever again." Gu Weilon was a loss for words. But now her mind was in a mess. What should I do? I can imagine Duke Ying's furious face after being hung up on. She gathered all her courage to tell the truth. "Ingwu, that was your father calling just now." Hanu didn't even care. "Whatever, I only need Vivi." Being confessed to so directly made Gu Weilon really embarrassed. This time, not only did her face turn red, but her whole body turned red. She couldn't help but admit, "I've really fallen for this line, damn it." Duke Ing persistently called again, the ringtone blaring non-stop, toot toot toot. It made Ingwu annoyed and want to reach out and turn it off. She quickly grabbed his wrist. "I can't let him act so recklessly anymore. Whatever." Gu Weilon gently placed a passionate kiss on his lips, surprising Ingwu so much that his eyes widened. After the kiss ended, she coaxed him, "Ingwu, be a little good, okay?" This time he didn't reply, as he still couldn't compose himself. Ingwu touched his lips and thought happily, "I was kissed proactively by my favorite Vivi." Then he continued to pull her body closer to his and looked at her passionately. "I want a kiss." Gu Weilon resolutely put her hand up between their lips. Then she pleaded, "Duking might really have something important. Wait for me for a few minutes, okay?" Ingwu held her hand, rubbing it against his cheek, and asked probingly, "Will Vivi kiss me again later?" Gu Weilon cleared her throat in embarrassment, then regained her composure and replied, "Okay." Ingwu looked at her with teary eyes, full of longing. Then, "Vivi, you have to be quick." Gu Weilon couldn't refuse. She could only sigh in frustration. Ingwu is too clingy during his susceptibility period. With Ingwu's permission, Gu Weilon immediately called Duking back. As soon as the call connected, she had to listen to a barrage of scolding from the other end. "Assistant Gu, you've got some nerve. Now you even dare to hang up on the Duke?" Duking's attitude made Ingwu very indignant. How dare he bully my Vivi? Unconsciously, he pulled her hand to his mouth and sucked each finger clean. Just as Gu Weilon opened her mouth to explain, "Just now, Ingwu accidentally bit her." It made her scream in extreme pain, Seeing this, Ingwu was extremely worried and quickly apologized to her. "Vivi, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to bite you so hard. Let me blow on it to make the pain go away. Foo foo foo." He focused on doing this for a long time. Occasionally, he would look up to coax her with a few words. "Vivi, don't be angry with me anymore, okay?" He also took her hand and rubbed it against his cheek a few times. Duking heard this voice that was both somewhat familiar and slightly strange and didn't know what to say next. After a moment, unable to bear it any longer, he pretended to cough. Ahem, and asked probingly, "Is Ingwu with Assistant Gu?" The suspicion in his heart grew. Is this really the son who always opposes me? This is the first time I've seen him like this. Gu Weilon knew she couldn't hide it anymore, sighed, and replied, "Yes." Duke Ing calmly asked, "Did his condition start yesterday?" She replied without hesitation, "That's right. Professor Bai Luo said he hasn't adapted to this planet yet, which is why this happened. He needs to return to his home planet for treatment." As Gu Weilon was speaking, Ingwu's actions caught her attention again. His little finger gently hooked hers. She thought he was just being a little mischievous, and although she blushed with embarrassment, she tried to continue, but there's still some unfinished work here. Who knew Ingwu would lose his patience and whine at her, "Vivi, didn't you say I only had to wait a few minutes?" Gu Weilon quickly covered his mouth with her hand, praying silently, "Please, don't cause any more trouble. Duke Ing will kill me." Ingwu struggled to break free, accidentally making some rather suggestive sounds. Duking was also helpless with his son. He wasn't an oblivious person, so he rubbed his aching forehead and said goodbye to the two of them. "I will contact you again later." After saying that, he immediately disconnected the call. Ingwu took advantage of her inattention to lift her up and sit her on the kitchen counter, his hands holding her waist tightly. Gu Weilon hurriedly tried to calm him down. Ingwu don't. He started using tears as a pity tactic again. "What's wrong? Didn't Vivi agree to kiss me?" After saying that, he buried his head in her shoulder and sobbed. Gu Weilon squeezed her eyes shut, raising a hand to massage her aching forehead, sighing internally, "I'm gonna go crazy." Ingwu seized the opportunity, and while she wasn't paying attention, he locked her hands above her head, then gave her a passionate kiss. One of their hands was tightly intertwined, while Ing-woo's other hand gripped Gu Weilon's small waist. The kiss continued to escalate, with charming moans occasionally escaping in between and Suddenly, she regained some rationality, her eyes flying open. No, we can't continue kissing. Gu Weilon pulled her lips away from his and said hurriedly, Ing-woo, wait, which left him a bit dazed, full of longing. He even brazenly whispered to her, Vivi, no more kisses? At this point, her soul felt like it was about to leave her body. So she had to say sternly, Ing-woo, I'm warning you, you'd better be good, otherwise don't blame me if you don't get dinner tonight. Ing-woo refused to give in, determined to confront her. If I don't eat, I don't eat. She narrowed her eyes, using her trump card. Then you don't want to sleep while hugging me later, right? Hearing this was like a bolt from the blue for Ing-woo. Two options appeared in his mind. One was to let Vivi go. The other was not being able to sleep with Vivi. He didn't want to give up either, so it was a very difficult choice. But in the end, Ing-woo decisively let her go. Gu Weilon took the opportunity to quickly jump down. Before she could even stand firm, Ing-woo quickly shouted, Vivi, don't go. Who knew she would point straight at his face and shout, stop, which scared him into standing frozen. This time, Gu Weilon said firmly, go stand in the corner as punishment. This sentence surprised him even more. Ing-woo couldn't handle the shock and burst into loud sobs, tears streaming down his adorable face. Vivi, how could you bear to punish me? The loud cry was so loud it echoed outside the building they were in. Gu Weilon crossed her arms in front of her chest, warning seriously, otherwise you know the consequences yourself. With tears in his eyes, Ing-woo poked his two index fingers together and negotiated with her. Then can I stand at the door as punishment? She couldn't bear to be too hard on him, so she had to nod in agreement. Fine. Finally, Gu Weilon could breathe a sigh of relief. She thought to herself, as long as he doesn't cling to me, it's fine. About 2 minutes after making him stand in punishment, Gu Weilon was busy in the kitchen alone with the basket of devil fruits. She used one fruit to scan the code on the planet's super analysis watch. During the process, she kept feeling an uncomfortable sensation, as if someone was watching her. This feeling is, Gu Weilon secretly glanced behind her to observe. Sure enough, she discovered that Ing-woo was indeed hiding behind the door, secretly observing her actions. In her mind, she kept chanting, Commander, please stop looking, and deliberately ignored him. Then Gu Weilon opened the analysis panel of the devil fruit she had just scanned to study it. However, she couldn't concentrate at all because of the clattering noises Ing-woo was deliberately making from behind. Gu Weilon turned her head and snapped, what's wrong with the commander? At this moment, Ing-woo was both knocking on the doorframe and sobbing pitifully for being abandoned. Seeing that she said nothing more, he became even more angry, scratching the door with all his might, which made her gasp and think to herself, have I made him so anxious that he's making animal noises? She had a headache, pondering, should I call him over here? It's true that I can't blame Ing-woo, because he's sick. That's why he's clinging to me like this. But in the end, Ing-woo spoke first, his two fingers poking together pitifully. Darling, when are we going to eat? Wait a little longer. Gu Weilon touched her heart. So cute. I can't take it anymore. Ing-woo couldn't stand it, stomping his feet in protest. But I'm so hungry. I'm really hungry. Seeing him deliberately overacting like this, Gu Weilon was very angry, but still had to suppress it and say calmly, wait for me for another 10 minutes. But in reality, she was thinking, I don't think you're hungry. You just want to kiss. Ing-woo immediately deflated and said, oh. Seeing this, Gu Weilon covered her mouth and laughed, haha. Scene changed to Duke Ying's office. At this moment, he was sitting with his chin in his hand, listening thoughtfully as his assistant reported on work. After speaking in one breath, the assistant next to him concluded, the above content has been reported. Suddenly, Duke Ying asked a question unrelated to what the assistant had just reported. Does Ing-woo normally rely too much on Gu Weilon? The assistant next to him was bewildered and said, huh. The assistant scratched his head and tried to explain on Gu Weilon's behalf. Dr. Gu is the ship's medic and Commander Ying's special assistant. In daily life, it's inevitable that he would get used to Dr. Gu's care. Perhaps this can be considered within the normal range. After hearing this, Duke Ying was also a little hesitant. Is that boy simply used to Gu Weilon's care? Ing-woo's voice on the phone clearly sounded like the only thing missing was him clinging to Gu Weilon like a wife. In the end, Duke Ying turned around in annoyance, struggling with his thoughts. so dignified in front of others, but once he gets sick, he has such a shameful appearance. Duke Ing angrily slammed the table, making the assistant next to him jump in fright. He ordered with a serious face, "Immediately send people to planet Sipu to bring Ing Wu back here." The assistant hurriedly complied, "Yes." Over here, Gu Weilon's watch chimed with a notification of a new message. This was a message from Duke Ing, Assistant Gu. "Prepare Ing Wu's psychological work files. I have dispatched Battleship Number 1 to planet Sipu. It will land this afternoon." After reading the notification, Gu Weilon stroked her chin and thought, "Ing Wu's psychological work files, could it be?" She immediately asked back, "Does Duke Ing mean that I don't need to return with the commander?" "What I mean is the commander's current situation. He can't really leave me." Duke Ing read it and replied, "That's why Assistant Gu needs to think of a way to make him leave." After reading this message, Gu Weilon was so angry she could burst. "Really, it makes me want to curse." At this moment, she suddenly remembered that Ing Wu was still undergoing his punishment, and she peeked out to secretly observe him. She saw him still standing there pitifully, scratching at the door. Her lips tightened, and she quietly walked towards him. Seeing this, Ing Wu's eyes lit up, and he began to act cute, pitifully complaining to her, "Darling, I've had such a hard time waiting for you." Hearing this voice, Gu Weilon's heart felt like it had been shot by Cupid's arrow as she lamented internally. How can he be so cute? She looked at him worriedly. "But this afternoon Duke Ing is sending people to pick Ing Wu up. Why do I feel a little lost in my heart?" She happily patted his head and asked, "Didn't you say you were very hungry just now? What do you want to eat for lunch?" Ing Wu excitedly made a request. "I want to eat sweets." Gu Weilon agreed without hesitation. "Okay, I'll make it for you." In her heart, she now had to think about another matter: how to coax Ing Wu to get on the spaceship later. Gu Weilon busily prepared the food, and after a while, she called out, "The food is ready. Can you help me get the spoons?" Ing Wu was very happy to be asked for help by her, and excitedly ran to do the task immediately. After returning with a bunch of cutlery, he took credit like an innocent child. "Here." Gu Weilon happily patted his head and said, "Thanks." The two of them happily sat down at the table. Gu Weilon spoke first. "Eat up quickly." Ing Wu just put a bite in his mouth to enjoy when he had to exclaim, "The food Vivi makes is so delicious." But Gu Weilon's mood at this moment was completely opposite, her face suddenly showing a look of sadness and sorrow. Then she sadly turned to him and said, "Ing Wu, I have something to tell you." Before she could say anything, he stuffed a strawberry in her mouth. "Vivi, try this, it's very sweet." Ing Wu calmly put the fork he had just used to feed Gu Weilon the strawberry into his mouth and asked, "What is it?" Gu Weilon wiped her mouth with a napkin and stammered, "The thing is, later, a spaceship will come to pick you up, and me too, to go back to the first planet." As expected, Ing Wu asked excitedly, "Are we going together?" Gu Weilon felt a great deal of guilt as she dared to answer untruthfully. She was afraid that if she told the truth, he would object. Hearing that, he cheered happily, agreeing without hesitation. "Okay." Not long after, the spaceship quickly arrived at their residence. At this time on planet Sipu, Ing Wu had finished changing his clothes. After seeing Gu Weilon only pulling out her own suitcase, he curiously asked, "Where are Wei Wei's things?" She awkwardly pointed inside and said, "The things are inside, just let me go get them." But he still quickly ran off. "Let me go get them for Wei Wei." Then he strongly hugged one on each side, chirping, "Let's go home together," leaving Gu Weilon not knowing how to stop him. She sighed tiredly, stopping to slowly rub her aching head. Adjutant Gao was bewildered, surprised to see the scene unfolding before his eyes. Before him was the image of Ing Wu happily carrying the luggage like a coolie, but with a face full of happiness, while Gu Weilon walked behind, covering her face in embarrassment. He began to question his existence. Is this really Commander Ing? Once inside, Gu Weilon hurriedly took his hand and led him away. "Let's go to the rest cabin." The automatic sensor system detected their approach and immediately opened the cabin door. She gently pushed him to lie down. He was a little reluctant and asked, "Darling, do we have to rest?" Gu Weilon pretended to cough as an excuse to turn her face away, hiding her guilt. Yes. After you wake up, we'll go back to the first planet." "Okay." Ing Wu's eyes welled up with tears. Although he didn't want to, he still obediently lay down. I'll listen to Wei Wei then. Seeing this, she thought to herself, I don't know why he's so obedient today. Not even a few seconds later, he forcefully pulled her hand down. She yelped in surprise. Ingwu you. He gently replied, I want to sleep with Wei Wei. Less than a second later, the two shared a passionate, intense, and lingering kiss. Gu Weilan used her last bit of reason to open her eyes. Then she tried to escape his demonic clutches, even as he kept puckering his lips, demanding kisses. All right, that's enough. It seemed her gentle words didn't faze him as he continued to caress her. Gu Weilan decisively pushed Ingwu away, seriously warning, go to sleep, which made his tears well up. Sobi. In the end, he had to compromise, obediently lying down and hugging her arm, smiling as he said, Wei Wei, sleep well, allowing her to breathe a sigh of relief. The space immediately became quiet. Gradually, only the sound of his breathing echoed throughout the room. Snore, snore, snore. Only then did she cautiously pull his arm off her face full of self-reproach. I'm sorry, Commander. Then she gently placed his hand on the mattress, then left silently, without a sound, while Ingwu was in a deep sleep, completely unaware. As soon as she was out, the password lock immediately activated. Gu Weilan carefully instructed Adjutant Gao, when the commander arrives, remember to let me know. He calmly nodded. She lowered her eyes, sighing sadly. Then she had no choice but to leave the warship. Gu Weilan turned back to look at the dining table, where the plate of cake and glass of milk were still untouched, thinking to herself, it's been less than a day with him. I didn't expect I'd already gotten used to his clinginess. Her eyes became vacant, losing their usual direction and vitality. She closed her eyes, trying to push away all thoughts of him, that it's just because of his illness that he's acting like this. It's not because he likes you. Wei Wei, you need to wake up. Suddenly, the watch on her wrist received a notification for an incoming call. Gu Weilan wondered, is Ingwu calling? Has he already returned to the planet? On the screen, Ingwu's frantic face appeared. He was forcefully banging on the door, screaming for her. Wei Wei, why can't I find you? Where are you? Adjutant Gao hurriedly held his hand back. Commander, stop. If you keep hitting it, your hands will be injured. In a moment of emotion, she accidentally called his name, Ingwu. Hearing her voice, Ingwu's eyes immediately widened, and he paused for a moment. Then tears started streaming down his face. Wei Wei, doesn't Wei Wei want Ingwu anymore? Ingwu promises to be good. He sobbed as he spoke haltingly. Adjutant Gao didn't know what to do except try to calm him down. Commander, please calm down. But this time, he was angrily pushed away by him, who shouted, get out of the way. A warning appeared on the screen, then it went black. Seeing this, Gu Weilan was very worried about him. Ingwu, could something have happened to him? She tried to reconnect the call, persistently calling over and over again. But all she got was the message, the call cannot be connected at this time. Please try again later. After a long while, she finally pressed the end call button, no longer trying to call. She told herself, forget it, I'll just wait for news from them, and let out a sigh. 2 hours later, the commander finally arrived safely at the experimental base. As soon as he arrived, Adjutant Gao immediately called to inform her that he's here. The commander has arrived at the experimental base. He's unconscious now, just waiting for Professor Bai to give him a health checkup. Okay, for the next 3 days, Wei Wei always kept her phone's ringer on, afraid of missing any calls from Ingwu, but in reality, no one called her. These past few days, she was like a soulless person, always thinking about his health. Ingwu, is he okay? This continued until she completed her mission on this planet and returned to the star. One night, she finally met the person she had been dreaming of day and night. She walked out from the headquarters, approaching a spaceship parked nearby. She gently called his name, Ingwu. Then she stealthily peeked inside to scout. Seeing him with his eyes closed, she thought to herself, did Ingwu specially come here to pick me up? She looked at him for a long time, gazing at the handsome face of the man of her dreams. Suddenly, he opened his eyes wide. He seriously asked her, Wei Wei, aren't you going to report on this star survey? Gu Weilan immediately explained, I'm sorry, Commander, it was my oversight. I haven't had time to prepare the report yet, so I couldn't submit it. I'll go back and complete it right away. She had to wake herself up that he's definitely back to normal, so don't expect the sober commander to be patient with me. Ingwu still said to her coldly, get in. Gu Weilan got in, voluntarily sitting in the driver's seat. She smiled and turned to ask him, where would the commander like to go? He didn't even bother to open his eyes to look at her and replied, find a place to eat. This made her feel both annoyed and puzzled. Did he wait outside for so long just to ask me to eat? The two of them went to a luxurious restaurant. They sat in a room with a table full of sumptuous food. To this moment, Gu Wei-lan still couldn't believe he waited for her just to invite her to eat. Are we really just eating? Out of habit, she said to Ingwu, hurry and help me get the... She had just said this when he asked, puzzled, what did you say? At this moment, Gu Wei-lan blushed with embarrassment, realizing her impoliteness. Damn it, get rid of this habit. I can't just order my boss around. She squeezed her eyes shut in avoidance. Nothing. Who would have thought that Ingwu would pick up a plate of cake and pass it to her? He placed it in front of her and gently asked, is this it? The romance didn't last long. The very next second, he brought over a plate of shrimp and said to Gu Wei-lan, peel the shrimp for me. This woke her from her dream. That's right, the cute, clingy Ingwu is completely gone. Don't expect anything anymore. Now, there's only the exploitative commander who oppresses his humble employee. As she thought this, she took her anger out on the shrimp. Just as she finished cursing him in her head, Ingwu pushed a plate of fish towards her and said, here, a fair trade. Gu Wei-lan, who was peeling shrimp, had to gape in surprise. The fish bones had been completely removed. This still my exploitative boss. While cutting his steak, Ingwu confided, Wei, my father said he has found the woman who was with me that night. As soon as she heard him say that, the piece of fish in her mouth shot out, and she choked violently. After calming down, she took a napkin to wipe her mouth clean, pretending to be calm as she probed. Really? Ingwu didn't hide anything and said frankly, MHM, I've seen the woman's picture. I don't like her. Gu Wei-lan worried. He surely doesn't remember anything from that night, right? To be sure, she turned to probe him. Commander, you don't remember what happened that night? How do you know what she looks like? Ingwu frowned, saying angrily, I don't know, but I'm sure of one thing. He wants to hide her from me because he wants me to meet another woman. Gu Wei-lan continued to ask, so what does the commander plan to do? He replied, first, I'll meet that other woman. I'll send you the information. You help me arrange it. Suddenly, she raised her voice and asked, I arrange it? After hearing this, she suddenly felt uneasy, a little. Gu Wei-lan heard this and announced, I'll arrange it. Ingwu said without hesitation, a sentence that made her choke. If not you, then who? Gu Wei-lan's face darkened as she continued. Commander, I think it would be best if you let someone else do it. Ingwu turned to look at her with a puzzled expression. Why? She replied awkwardly, because I'll be quite busy for the next few days. He got so angry, he shot up, questioning her in an interrogating tone. Assistant Gu, are you kidding me? Although Gu Wei-lan didn't want to, she could only turn her back to him. What now? I really don't have the courage to work with him anymore. I probably can't continue this job. It's time to go. Scene changed to the La Gong banquet. Inside the castle, the lights were brightly lit, looking extremely magnificent and brilliant. Inside, Gu Wei-lan was making introductions. This is Commander Ing, and this is Miss Song. Please take your time to get to know each other. Miss Song waited for her to finish before speaking politely. Hello. This made Gu Wei-lan unable to help but be surprised at as expected of someone from the aristocracy. Just one sentence, one gesture exudes nobility. A single glance is enough to be captivating. She sighed, looking at herself, truly not like someone who spends all day in the military barracks like me. While Miss Song was talking, Ingwu paid no attention to her. His attention was instead on Gu Wei-lan's sad and dejected face. He was extremely worried, wondering what problem she was facing. Before he could even ask, Gu Wei-lan spoke first. Well then, I won't disturb you two any longer. I'll take my leave. She was just about to turn and go when Ingwu grabbed her wrist and pulled her back, worry evident on his face. He asked frantically, where are you going? Gu Wei-lan gently replied, Commander, I have other matters to attend to. Ingwu refused to let go and set a condition, but later at the riding school, you have to come with me too. She wondered, isn't Miss Song already here? Of course, Ingwu was always one step ahead of her. He refused to back down, continuing to nitpick, but what does it matter if I tell you to stay? In the end, Gu Wei-lan compromised again. Forget it, I won't argue with him anymore. Anyway, today is my last day of work, I'll indulge him a little. Who would have thought that before she could even speak, he pulled her away again, leaving Miss Song behind to watch their retreating backs. She lowered her eyes, feeling that something was not right between them. The attendant announced with a bright smile, "Commander, the equestrian attire is ready. Please come in and change." The cheerful look on his face was a complete contrast to the annoyed frown on Ingwu's face. 30 minutes passed quickly. His slowness made Gu Wei-lan pace back and forth a dozen times outside in her anxiety. What is he doing that's taking so long? Lost in thought, she looked up when she heard sound. At this moment, Ingwu had changed into equestrian attire. He looked more handsome than usual, giving off a novel feeling that almost made her jaw drop in surprise. He gently walked up to her, cherishing her arm, while she pretended to be calm and asked herself, what is he planning to do now? He had already put the watch back on her wrist. Ingwu gave Gu Wei-lan one surprise after another. She immediately asked him, isn't this the watch for last time? You went to the trouble of bringing a spaceship to pick me up and made me find it. How come? Before she could finish, the watch had already slid down to the back of her hand. Seeing this, Ingwu muttered to himself, it seems it doesn't fit well. He then raised her arm high, letting the watch slide down near her shoulder. Then he let go of her hand, letting the watch roll down to the back of her hand, and then looked annoyed at the damn watch that dared not to fit her hand. Ingwu placed one hand on her waist, while the other held her hand up to admire. I S it because my hand is too big. This made her blush with embarrassment. Then she quickly regained her composure and pulled her hand away, questioning, but why did you put the watch on? Me? Ingwu replied nonchalantly, for you to keep it for me. That annoying tone calmed her down. Must be my imagination. She watched his back as he approached the stables. Ingwu skillfully rode the horse with expertise. Watching this scene, she could only sigh, While she was focused on watching him, someone suddenly called her name, startling her. Assistant Gu. Gu Wei-lan looked over and discovered it was Miss Song. She rested her chin on her hand and said with a smile, Assistant Gu, you and the commander, don't you have some other kind of relationship? Gu Wei-lan seriously dismissed it. Miss Song, you're overthinking things. Of course, Miss Song was a good judge of character. Not a blind person that I asked that so, but I feel the way Assistant Gu looks at the commander isn't like an employee looking at her. Boss. Gu Wei-lan didn't know how to explain it properly. Fortunately, Miss Song was very tactful that it's okay. I have no intention of marrying him anyway. Meeting him was just to go through the motions. I don't care what kind of relationship you two have. At this point, Gu Wei-lan also felt more relaxed. She continued, if I may be so bold as to ask, for what purpose did Miss Song agree with the Duke? Miss Song put a finger to her lips and winked. That's my little secret. I can't tell Assistant Gu. Gu Wei-lan also knew her place. She said politely, then I won't disturb you two any longer. I'll take my leave now. After speaking, she turned and walked straight away. Even so, a sad expression still lingered on her beautiful face. After returning to her residence, Gu Wei-lan changed her clothes, put on a face mask, and leaned back comfortably in her chair to relax. Finally, I can rest. Suddenly, the call notification on her watch rang. Gu Wei-lan glanced at it and thought to herself, a message from the Duke. He must have read my resignation letter. By now, as soon as she answered, the Duke questioned her, Assistant Gu, you want to resign? Gu Wei-lan calmly took off the mask she was wearing and replied, I'm only resigning as an assistant. If there's a war, I will still participate as a warship doctor. Duking frowned and shook his head. I need a valid reason. She didn't hesitate to speak directly. Duke, haven't you already arranged a marriage partner for the commander? You can't possibly still want me there to handle the commander's sensitive issues, can you? After all, I'm just a special assistant. Hearing her say this, Duking nodded, finding it quite reasonable. That's true. Morally speaking, doing so would indeed put her in a difficult position. He continued, but he has grown so accustomed to your care. If you resign now, how could he bear to leave you? After hearing this, Gu Wei-lan also thought, that's right, he's become too used to me, but it's just a habit. However, she still held firm to her intention. Duke, rest assured, the commander is just too used to me. After a period of my absence, he will naturally get used to it again. I have also recommended a new person for you. I will send you the information to review later. If there is nothing else, I will rest now. After speaking, Gu Wei-lan hung up without any hesitation. This is great. Finally a long vacation. I can finally take my parents out. She gently took off the watch. Then she stood up and went into the bedroom, unaware that a call from Commander Ing was coming through on the do not disturb mode of the watch she had just removed. Duking looked at the abruptly ended call and said, it seems Assistant Gu is determined to leave. The Duchess beside him chided, isn't it because you're so self-righteous? You don't respect her, so of course she can't endure this grievance. He felt a bit wrong too, but I felt that Ingwu was too dependent on Wei Lan. That's why I thought of finding the Song family's daughter to distract him. I didn't expect her to think that way. But all of Duke Ying's explanations were useless in front of the Duchess. She left angrily and resentfully, leaving him with a warning before she went, "If that boy falls into a demonic trance again, we'll see how I settle the score with you." Duke Ying, with tears in his eyes, chased after her. "Honey, don't be angry." It turned out he was just a henpecked husband. The next morning, when the sun was already casting its hot rays on her bottom, Gu Weilan slowly woke up, yawning widely. Although it was more comfortable at home, she was tired from a sleepless night. "This is so frustrating. Why did I keep thinking about Ingwu all night?" She walked to the water table and picked up the watch. It was then that she was horrified to discover, "You have 230 missed calls from Commander Ing. What is this?" In the end, Gu Weilan finally gathered the courage to call back. "Forget it. I have to face it anyway. Might as well say it directly now." As soon as she pressed call, the other end connected immediately, and his voice came through Assistant Gu. "You're late for work today," which startled her so much she dropped the watch. Who knew he would answer the phone right away? Commander Ing on the other side was still leisurely giving orders. "But because your superior is too merciful, I'll forgive you for being late this time. Now come over here and prepare breakfast for me. I'm very hungry." Gu Weilan had a bad feeling. Could it be that Duke Ing hasn't told the commander? Finally, she gathered her courage and asked, "Commander, hasn't Duke Ing told you that I've already resigned?" Hearing her say that, Ingwu's hand holding the fork tightened in anger. He gritted his teeth and asked, "Gu Weilan, you dare to resign behind my back?" Gu Weilan immediately retorted, "Commander, I was originally hired by the Duke." Ingwu asked coldly, "Reason?" Two short words, but filled with killing intent, made her so troubled she was scratching her head. "How can I explain this? Should I say it's because you already have a marriage partner? It's not appropriate for me, as an assistant, to have an intimate relationship with you, and it's no longer suitable for me to be by your side." Seeing no response from her, he changed the question, "If you're not working for me, who are you going to work for?" This question was easier to answer, so Gu Weilan replied without hesitation, "I don't plan to work for you anymore. I don't plan to work for anyone. I'm still a warship doctor, just not your assistant anymore." After hearing this, Ingwu hung up without another word. Finally, Gu Weilan could feel relieved for having dealt with this difficult obstacle. She lifted her spirits, cheerfully brushing it off. "Forget it. No more overthinking. Mom, let's go on a trip." Her whole family went to Luo Xing together. The first place they went was the shopping center. Gu Weilan bought ice cream for the whole family. While her mother enjoyed it enthusiastically, her father awkwardly refused. Then the mother and daughter took the father to buy new clothes. Then it was her mother's turn. Gu Weilan looked at her mother wearing a pastel green hat and praised, "This hat suits you very well." 1 second, the front of the center was bustling and noisy. The next second, it was in chaos from a warship bombardment. Gu Weilan hurriedly hugged her mother to protect her. She glanced at the rampaging warships in the sky and determined there were invaders. Her mother, though scared, worriedly reminded her daughter, "Wei Wei, your father is still outside." She looked firmly into her mother's eyes and instructed, "Mom, you hide inside now. I'll go outside to find Dad." After arranging for her mother, she calmly drew the specialized gun from her hip. Gu Weilan immediately became professional. She contacted the First Planet to report. "The shopping center on Xingguan needs urgent assistance. Rebel forces are on a rampage." After reporting, she immediately ran outside to find her father. Meanwhile, she was constantly thinking of a countermeasure. "There are too many of these rampaging forces. If this continues, it won't be good. I don't know when reinforcements from the First Planet will arrive." Suddenly, the 2 warships above her were shot down. Gu Weilan looked up to observe. Have the reinforcements from the First Planet arrived? She happily turned to look behind her, searching for help. Who knew that what was behind her would make her eyes widen in surprise? It was indeed people from the First Planet, but this warship looked so familiar. Just then, the warship door opened. Unexpectedly, the person who stepped out was Ingwu, the person she had just been rude to. Ingwu and Gu Weilan faced each other. Only then did she become dazed, finding a flaw. This kind of matter doesn't require a high-ranking commanding officer like him to come here. Suddenly, her father appeared from behind, asking breathlessly, "Wei Wei, "Are you okay? Where's your mother?" She quickly replied, "I came out to find you. Mom is safe inside the shopping center, Dad. Go find her first." Gu Weilan told herself silently, "Whatever, let's deal with the matter at hand first." She said to her father again, "I'll stay here to save people." Around Gu Weilan now, everyone was busy treating the injured. Seeing this, her father couldn't say much more. Worry was clearly visible on his wrinkled face, but he could do nothing but instruct his daughter. "Then you be careful." After her father left, Gu Weilan immediately went to a nurse, showed her official ID card, and explained, "I am a doctor and can help everyone here." The nurse pointed to a patient and said, "That's great. We're short-staffed right now. Can you come and check the condition of that man's injuries for us?" Who knew that when she went over, Gu Weilan would discover that the man was Fu Cheng, her previous blind date. "It's you." Fu Cheng smiled when he saw her and said, "I just came to Luo Xing for work. What about Dr. Gu?" Although Gu Weilan was focused on bandaging, she still took a moment to answer his question. "I brought my parents here to have fun." Suddenly, someone called her name, "Dr. Gu." She turned around and found that it was Adjutant Gao. He continued, "Dr. Gu, the commanding officer is calling you over." Gu Weilan asked again with suspicion. Now, Adjutant Gao awkwardly scratched his head and replied, "Yes." Fu Cheng took the roll of bandage from her hand and said, "You go ahead. I can do it myself." Before leaving, Gu Weilan still reminded him one more time, not feeling at ease, "Be careful not to touch water." She slowly walked into the warship. In front of her was Ying Wu, sitting and looking at the parameters on the control screen. He didn't turn his face to look at her, but just said in a serious tone, "Did you forget that you are still my warship's medic?" Gu Weilan replied without emotion, "Yes." At this point, Ying Wu swiveled his chair around and casually informed her, "I'm injured." Gu Weilan immediately brought the first aid box over, asking with concern, "Where is the commander injured?" Ying Wu coldly pointed to the first button of his shirt. She looked at the position he pointed to and was a little worried. Chest. Even so, she still quickly knelt at his feet to unbutton his shirt. Seeing Gu Weilan stoop down, Ying Wu quickly lowered his gaze to watch her intently. Gu Weilan was so absorbed in her task that she didn't notice his action. When she took off his shirt, she discovered a wound that was still bleeding on his left chest. Gu Weilan looked up worriedly and asked him, "Why is the commander injured?" Ying Wu didn't answer her question, but focused on another matter. "What is your relationship with the person from just now?" Gu Weilan turned to find things in the toolbox to avoid his gaze and answered perfunctorily, "A newly met friend." She used a cotton ball soaked in alcohol to disinfect his wound, asking as she worked, "Does it hurt?" Ying Wu maintained his cold attitude and replied, "It doesn't hurt." Then he continued to question, "Why would a newly met friend come to Luo Star with you?" Gu Weilan didn't want him to misunderstand and hurriedly explained, "It was just a coincidence. We didn't come together." Then she suddenly realized, what does this have to do with the commander? Then she focused on her task again, quickly unwrapping a roll of gauze. Then she wrapped her arms around his back, looking as if she was about to hug him, and reminded him in a stern voice, "Don't move, let me bandage it." At this moment, their faces were incredibly close. He only needed to lean down to kiss her lips. Perhaps it was this proximity that made Ying Wu blush shyly. Just as Gu Weilan stood on her tiptoes, she got a cramp. She frowned in pain. "Ouch, my leg is numb." Then she turned to remind him once more, "Commander, please sit still." Unexpectedly, he reached out, wrapped his arm around Gu Weilan's small waist, and pulled her into his lap. She blushed shyly and called out, "Commander," but he just held her tightly and said pleadingly, "Don't move. I missed you." This sentence made Gu Weilan's heart melt. Although her heart softened, she still had a bit of reason left. After regaining her composure, Gu Weilan couldn't help but wonder upon hearing Ying Wu's words. "Why?" Ying Wu gently stroked her hair and replied, "Because Assistant Gu was not by my side." This time, she was not mesmerized and decisively pushed him away. She explained awkwardly, "Commander, I have to go. My parents are waiting for me. I have to take them back to Incite safely." Ying Wu then gave her an option, "Take my warship back." But Gu Weilan just smiled and refused outright. "Better not. I wouldn't want to trouble the commander." Then she quickened her pace, as if this place were a demon's cave that she had to leave as quickly as possible. He watched her departing back from behind, remaining silent and not trying to hold her back. Only after Gu Weilan was gone did he turn on his watch to inquire, "Is there a suitable island to lock someone up?" Just a few seconds after he pressed search, the warning system began to sound continuously. "Warning, warning. Master, a reminder to you, imprisoning a person is a violation of the law in the Imperial Federation. Warning, warning." Wu then changed the question. Then, is there another way, a way to make Assistant Gu stay by my side without breaking the law? The artificial intelligence immediately provided an answer in a few seconds. Based on a master's question, two legitimate methods have been found. The first is to increase Gu Weilan's salary. This method is not feasible because what she needs now is not money. The second method is to marry her. Reading this, Wu fell into deep thought. Marriage? By now, it was dark, and in the entire apartment complex, only Gu Weilan's apartment was lit. At this moment, she was soaking in the bathtub, saying with satisfaction, "Ah, finally home." Only now did she recall Wu's strange attitude this morning. What was wrong with him today? Strange. She gently stepped out of the bathtub, then leisurely put on her bathrobe. After tying the belt, she reached out her hand in a gesture to straighten it for the person opposite her. Only then did she realize with a start, why did I suddenly make this gesture? Gu Weilan slapped her face repeatedly to regain her senses. I must be too tired today. Time to sleep. Go to sleep. Scene changed to the next morning. The sound of an incoming call continuously emanated from the watch. The ringing went on, causing her to frown. When she became so angry, she couldn't stand it anymore. She shot up and answered the call. Hello. Hearing her still sleepy tone mixed with a bit of anger at being woken up, Wu asked, Assistant Gu, are you still sleeping? After Gu Weilan realized the caller was Wu, she was stunned, and all her sleepiness vanished. She immediately switched to a professional demeanor to speak with him. I just woke up. Is there something the commander needs from me? He nodded and thought to himself. Her just woken up voice is also very cute. Then he turned to answer her question. Yes, last time I asked you to keep my wristwatch. Did you forget to return it? Gu Weilan scratched her head, trying to remember. A watch? I remember leaving on the commander's aircraft. Wu adjusted his cuff and immediately denied it. It's not there. Hasn't Assistant Gu just returned to Incite for a few days? It must have been dropped at Assistant Gu's place. Being suspected by him, Gu Weilan angrily raised her tone. Why on earth would I take the commander's watch home? It's so big I can't even wear it. She stated with certainty, it's definitely not here. At this, Wu laughed and changed the subject. Assistant Gu, are you also grumpy when you first wake up? Only then did she realize she had been a bit rude. I'm sorry. He acted magnanimous and even asked kindly. It's all right. Have you found it yet? Assistant Gu? She said without hesitation. Not yet. But as she fumbled in her pocket to search, before she could finish her sentence, she had to correct herself. Found it. It turns out it was in the pocket of the coat she wore yesterday. Wu was proud that he had come up with such a brilliant plan, because he was the one who had deliberately put it there. He suppressed his joy and said with a feigned seriousness, all right, I'll come to your house to get it now. Gu Weilan anxiously shouted, wait, I'm at home in City right now. Wu ruffled his hair and replied, I know. Come out to meet me in 5 minutes. 1,000 question marks seemed to run through her head. He's coming to my house. Gu Weilan immediately ran out the door to wait to return Wu's watch. The moment she came out, a warship was already waiting outside. It wasn't until Wu stepped out of the warship that a dazed Gu Weilan whispered to herself. The commander came here himself? Unexpectedly, he was very sharp and, after hearing her, replied, Yes, Assistant Gu, lead the way. Gu Weilan extended her hand to point the way. Please follow me. While leading the way, she would occasionally glance back to observe his actions. He also felt awkward and blurted out a random sentence. I don't like that the whole garden is full of roses. This left Gu Weilan helpless and speechless. In the end, she could only remind him in a stern voice, This is my house. Whether the commander likes it or not is not important. At this moment, he suddenly stroked his chin thoughtfully, but it's not unacceptable either. Seeing him become increasingly bizarre, Gu Weilan's face went blank as she thought to herself, I don't know what nonsense this person thinks about all day. She placed a pair of slippers at his feet and said politely, Commander, please change your shoes. Meanwhile, Gu Weilan's parents were hiding behind the door, secretly observing the new arrival. As soon as Wu had changed his slippers, Gu Weilan's mother immediately came over, enthusiastically took his hand, and introduced herself. I've heard my treasure talk about the commander before. Today, I finally get to meet you. After hearing her, an idea for a new form of address sparked in his mind. Treasure? Gu Weilan could only make an excuse to get her mother away. Mom, I'm going upstairs to get something. Unexpectedly, Ing-woo chimed in from behind. As it happens, I have some work to discuss directly with Assistant Gu. Would it be convenient for you to take me to your room? Before she could make a decision, her parents spoke up in unison. Wei-lan, quickly take the leader to your room. Don't delay things. Gu Wei-lan had no choice but to open her bedroom door for him. Click! As soon as she closed the door, she sighed to herself. Mom and Dad are just causing more trouble. Suddenly, Ing-woo leaned in very close to her and said in a deep, captivating voice, "Treasure." This new address made her face turn as red as a ripe tomato. Embarrassment turned to anger, and she could only shout to warn him, "Don't call me that again." To avoid Ing-woo, she immediately turned away from his gaze and made an excuse. "I'll go get the watch first. The commander can wait here for a moment." Unexpectedly, before she could take a few steps, he grabbed her by the wrist and pulled her back. He gently placed his other hand on her hip, their bodies pressing closely together. Ing-woo looked straight into Gu Wei-lan's eyes and said seriously, "Assistant Gu, I have something important to discuss with you." The formality in his words made her feel shy, and she just wanted to avoid his gaze. "Let go of me quickly." Ing-woo was also very respectful of her, immediately letting go so she could create some distance from him. All right. Then he naturally sat down at the desk in her room. He pressed his watch to open a document and casually said to her, "Assistant Gu, take a look at this contract for a moment." Gu Wei-lan curiously leaned down to look. "What is this?" When she saw the contents of the contract clearly, her eyes widened in surprise. It turned out that what Ing-woo was showing her was a marriage contract. He calmly picked up a teacup, took a sip, and continued, "Assistant Gu, think about it. Marry me." The seriousness he had shown from the beginning indicated that what he was saying was not a joke. But this news was truly too hard to believe. She couldn't help but ask again, "Commander, are you joking with me?" Ing-woo replied seriously, "Do you think I came to your house myself just to joke with you?" Gu Wei-lan became even more curious. "Then may I ask why?" After hearing her question, he beckoned Gu Wei-lan closer. "Come here." She approached him without any suspicion. Sure enough, Ing-woo was not to be trusted. Before she even got close, he shot up, closing the distance between them. He gripped her wrist tightly, not letting go. Then he pinned her hand onto the desk behind her, forcing her to place her other hand on his body to keep her balance. Ing-woo brought his face closer and closer to hers, causing Gu Wei-lan's heart to pound incessantly. She squeezed her eyes shut, her thoughts in a jumble. Is he going to kiss me again? But where am I house? Unexpectedly, his face turned bright red at that moment, but he only rubbed his face against one side of hers. Then he rested his head on her shoulder and whispered like a pouting child, "Because you're not by my side, I can't live and work normally." Before coming, I asked Professor Bailuo. He said that the demonic crystal inside me has gotten used to your presence. So, can you marry me? This abrupt question left Gu Wei-lan at a loss for how to answer. She thought worriedly to herself, he's clearly talking romance, but he says it like it's a business matter, as if he's only marrying me because I'm a useful tool. Ing-woo didn't care about her feelings and was only focused on negotiating. "You can propose your conditions as long as they are within my capabilities. Even if they are not within my capabilities, I can still do my best to make assistance." Gu satisfied. Gu Wei-lan didn't dare to look him in the eye, so she turned her face away to inquire, but isn't the commander in an arranged marriage with Miss Song?" Ing-woo immediately explained, "I am not in an arranged marriage with anyone else." Unexpectedly, she coldly pulled her hand away and refused outright, "But I don't want to marry anyone either, including the commander." Ing-woo was stunned and wanted an answer from Gu Wei-lan as to why she didn't want to marry him. Gu Wei-lan answered seriously, "My family is also quite wealthy, although not on par with you upper-class people. We are considered to have a large enterprise in city. I don't want to sell myself just to have a political marriage with you." She thought about her parents' attitude when she told them about this later. They would surely be happy, "Daughter, your parents support you." She became even more frustrated. "My family doesn't lack anything. There's no need to compromise with this guy." As Ing-woo heard her explain all her reasons, a great deal of killing intent immediately radiated from him, although he did not clearly show his emotions. But a sensitive person like Gu Wei-lan, who had been his special assistant, would naturally pick up on it. She immediately made an excuse to slip away. I'll go get the thing for you." As she finished speaking, the door slammed shut. He could only stand silently in the empty, unfamiliar room, lacking the warmth of an important person. In the end, Ingwu still couldn't suppress his emotions and let out a cold snort, biting his lip, then violently ripped the neat tie from his neck, angrily ordering his system, brain, I order you, no matter what method you use, you must bring Gu Wei-lan back here. After speaking, he pressed the execute button on the control screen without hesitation. The anger had not yet subsided from his face. I want to make her only be able to stay by my side for this entire life. As he silently made his decision, he coldly walked out of the room. When Gu Wei-lan returned to the room with the watch and didn't see him, she then walked out to the living room in a daze. She saw her parents sadly holding a plate of pastries they hadn't had a chance to offer their guest, informing her Commander Ng just said he still had business in the military department, so he left first. Her father worriedly inquired, My dear, what did you two talk about? I noticed that when Commander Ng left, his expression wasn't very good. Gu Wei-lan smiled and brushed it off. It's nothing, But before she could finish, her eyes widened. The sound of retching immediately came out. Gu Wei-lan hurriedly covered her mouth with her hand. Her parents couldn't help but panic, asking anxiously, My dear, what's wrong with you? Why are you suddenly sick like this? Is there any medicine in the house? Do you need to go to the hospital for a checkup? She quickly suppressed the nausea, slowly replying to reassure her parents. It's probably my old palate sickness acting up again. I have an appointment to get it checked at the hospital today, right? Mom and Dad, don't worry, it's nothing. Gu Wei-lan quickly walked outside to get ready for her checkup. Just as she walked out of the gate, her head suddenly spun. Before she lost consciousness, she still thought in fear, damn it, it's an anesthetic. After thinking that, she fell to the ground and fainted. Scene changed to the first planet. The breeze and cheerful sunlight played gently with the thin curtains. At this moment, Gu Wei-lan slowly opened her eyes. It wasn't until she sat up completely that she realized with a start, this is Ng Wu's bedroom. Gu Wei-lan tried to use her hands to push her body off the bed, but couldn't. Signed to herself, why is my whole body so weak? The very next second, the door opened, and Ng Wu, wearing a seductive, slip bathrobe, walked into the room, a few drops of water still clinging to his handsome face, rolling down from his soaking wet hair. He walked to the bedside, gallantly leaned down, and kindly asked Gu Wei-lan, You're awake? All her frustration was immediately directed at him. Commander, you were the one who had people tie me up and bring me here, and then you made me inhale anesthetic, right? All of Gu Wei-lan's suspicions were immediately confirmed by him. Yes, she asked indignantly. Do you know that doing this is illegal? Ng Wu stubbornly stated his reason, but you won't marry me. He was clearly the one at fault, but he acted as if she was bullying him. His face was just short of being etched with the words, You won't marry me, along with an extreme, inexpressible resentment. She used her hands to push him away, get away, but unfortunately, because she had just been drugged, her body was now as limp as a noodle. It was hard enough to stand up on her own, let alone resist. Of course, the result was that her wrist was gripped by him, tightly, then pressed down hard on the bed, the two of them embracing. Gu Wei-lan kept trying to reason. This is not a reason for you to kidnap and drug me. Do you know that I can sue you for breaking the law? Although threatened by her, Ng Wu still just gently replied with two words, I know, while his grip on her wrist grew tighter. He lifted her chin, threatening her back. I can lock Assistant Gu up, sleep until Assistant Gu is pregnant, and by that day, Assistant Gu will not be able to leave me. Gu Wei-lan's eyes became empty. She asked him in fear, Who gave the commander this idea? He gently bit the button of her sleeve and changed the subject. Isn't it you? If you don't want to continue being my assistant, and you don't want to marry me, then I can only break the law. As Ng Wu finished speaking, the button on her sleeve was bitten off by him. The fabric on her arm quickly slid down. Ng Wu cherished her arm and caressed it. I want your whole body to have the scent of me. Assistant Gu, your lips look very alluring. Gu Wei-lan was both a little shy and a little scared. Looking at him, Ng Wu gradually lowered himself closer to her until their lips were about to touch each other. Suddenly the sound of Gu Wei-lan retching rang out, ruining his mood. Retch, retch, cough, cough, cough. She coughed loudly while squirming, wanting to push him away. Ng Wu's face seemed to turn pale. He didn't expect her to have such an extreme reaction, so his face lost all color. Do I make Assistant Gu feel so nauseous that you can't help but vomit in front of me? Gu Wei-lan looked at Ng Wu with worried eyes and thought to herself, if I don't sweet-talk him now, who knows what other scary things he'll do. She continued to maintain that pitiful gaze, her hair disheveled, then closed her eyes to avoid his gaze and turned her face away to say my stomach is not feeling well today. After hearing this, Ng Wu silently stared at her without a word. This attitude of his made Gu Wei Lan think even more. Why isn't he talking? Suddenly, he lifted her onto his lap, causing Gu Wei Lan to cry out in alarm. Ah, Commander Yu. His two hands wrapped around her waist and squeezed her hips tightly, making her unable to help but let out a shy moan. Gu Wei Lan could only bite her lip lightly to suppress her moan and reassure Ingwu. Don't be like this. Ingwu looked straight into her eyes. If not like this, then how? Gu Wei Lan thought carefully. Right now the commander is like he's possessed. I have to stabilize his spirit first. In the end, she had to negotiate. I can go back and continue to be your assistant. Ingwu brought his face close to hers and asked, how do I know that Assistant Gu isn't lying to me? Hearing him ask this, Gu Wei Lan raised her voice in reply, feeling suspected. I could sign a new contract with the commander. That should be enough, right? Ingwu was silent for a moment to think. Gu Wei Lan continued her ideological work. Commander, I don't want to. Do you really want to force me to have a relationship with you? He was shamed into blushing by her bullied-looking face and turned away. No. What was more surprising was that he proposed a new condition. Then you have to let me lock you up for a bit. Gu Wei Lan let out a horrified huh. Ingwu immediately took out the handcuffs he had prepared under the bed. He swiftly locked her two hands, as if he had practiced this many times. The two clicks that rang out were also the moment her freedom was restricted. From a moment he finished speaking to when her hands were cuffed. Gu Wei Lan was so stunned she could only utter one word. You. Ingwu shamelessly introduced. I had them custom-made to Assistant Gu's wrist size. I've never put them on Assistant Gu before. The size is just right. Not feeling assured, he even tried to rotate them around her wrist to see if they were really secure. At this point, Gu Wei Lan had regained her senses and immediately questioned him. So, Commander, when you put that watch on my wrist that day, you actually already had the idea of imprisoning me, right? Otherwise, how would you know my wrist size so well and even have these terrifying custom-made handcuffs? Just imagining it made her want to give him a few kicks. To vent her anger, Ingwu suddenly picked her up and said, I'm going to print a new contract. Then he gently placed her neatly on the bed and whispered softly in her ear, his gentle words carrying a hint of warning. Assistant Gu, wait for me here. Don't even think about running away. Then Ingwu leisurely walked out. At the same time, the sound of the door slamming shut echoed in the room. Finally, Gu Wei Lan could let out a sigh of relief. Phew, he's finally gone. She looked at her cuffed hands and decided, in order not to let him go crazy and come up with more ideas, I can only pretend to obey him for this period of time. A moment later, Ingwu returned with a new contract and showed it to her. Assistant Gu, see if there are any problems. If not, then sign it. Gu Wei Lan sat on the edge of the bed, took the contract he handed her, and read it carefully. Suddenly, his eyes drooped because he noticed Gu Wei Lan's slightly trembling arm. She still didn't know she was being watched and just pointed to the last clause of the contract and asked, as long as the commander's demonic crystal fluctuates, no matter what, I must return to the commander's side to perform a soothing function? Ingwu calmly affirmed, that's right, this is very important. Gu Wei Lan thought silently for a moment, but he didn't give her time to hesitate, immediately staring at her and threatening. Assistant Gu doesn't want to? His eyes became murky as if he wanted to eat her. Alive. Gu Wei Lan could only answer with difficulty. No, I agree. Then she reluctantly signed the contract. While Ingwu was carefully examining the signature, she inquired, so can I go home now? He looked outside, wanting to find a reason for her to stay. It's very late now, but she still said resolutely, I still have to go home. Ingwu silently turned to look at Gu Wei Lan's determined face, feeling guilty for forcing her. This time he compromised. All right. Ingwu gently unlocked the handcuffs for her. Gu Wei Lan was just waiting to immediately turn and leave this place without any lingering attachment. Then I'll be going. Unexpectedly, before she could take a few steps, he grabbed her by the wrist and pulled her back, making Gu Wei Lan scared that he was about to try something. Ingwu pulled her into a tight hug and whispered, Assistant Gu, can I kiss you for a bit? Wei Lan voiced her displeasure clearly. No. Ingwu, of course, did not let her go because of that attitude. He continued in a low voice. Next, I have to leave Assistant Gu for a whole night. If I can have some intimate contact with Assistant Gu now, it will comfort me a lot. Hearing that, Wei Lan groaned inwardly. Using such a righteous reason to be a rogue, is there no law anymore? Looking at his demeanor, she felt that if she didn't agree, she wouldn't be able to leave today, so she decided not to care anymore. Then Wei Lan sighed and replied, all right, a kiss on the cheek. But before she was mentally prepared, unprepared, her neck was grabbed by Ing-woo and pulled closer. In an instant, he had captured Wei Lan's sweet, plump lips. Wei Lan, attacked so suddenly and unprepared, could only weakly push him away. When released, Wei Lan looked at him and said in a low voice, "Commander." She vaguely felt in her heart that this kiss seemed different from before. At this moment, Ing-woo touched her lips again. Once again, kissing them lightly, Wei Lan let him do as he pleased. After being soothed, Ing-woo was satisfied and started to leave. "I'll take you home." Wei Lan, on the other hand, foolishly touched her lips, standing motionless and looking at Ing-woo. Ing-woo's private jet took off a moment later. At the villa in the evening, Wei Lan sat by the window, looking outside thoughtfully. The whole day felt like a dream. Then she touched her lips again, her face unconsciously blushing. That kiss. Wei Lan, unsure of her feelings, buried her head in the mattress. "Stop thinking about it," Gu Wei Lan. But she had an indescribable feeling. She sat up abruptly and touched her stomach. For the past 2 days, her stomach had felt strange. "I have to go to the hospital for a